Empress Wren's body convulses violently as her heat cycle begins, far earlier than expected. The massive reptilian humanoid, her iridescent scales shimmering under the throne room's harsh lights, grips the armrests of her seat with clawed hand. Her piercing amber eyes, usually filled with cold calculation, now burn with a primal intensity that sends shockwaves of fear through her assembled advisors. Your Majesty, the chief medical officer rushes forward, scanner in hand. This isn't possible. Your cycle wasn't due for another 3 months. Wren's tail lashes, leaving deep gouges in the ornate floor. Explain, she hisses through clenched teeth. The medical officer's scales pale. Without a suitable mate within 72 hours, you'll lose the ability to produce viable offspring. The royal lineage... I'm aware of the consequences, Wren snarls, her voice echoing off the vaulted ceilings. The implications hang heavy in the air. No heir, no stable succession. The Draconis Empire, spanning dozens of star systems, could fracture and collapse. The council erupts into panicked debate. Traditional solutions are proposed and discarded rapid fire. Draconis males have proven genetically incompatible for generations, a cruel twist of evolution that's driven their species to the brink. There is one option, a senior advisor suggests hesitantly. The humans. Silence falls. Wren's eyes narrow dangerously. You dare suggest I lower myself to breed with a mammal? Your Majesty, our population crisis leaves us little choice. Their genetic diversity could be the key to our survival. And there's a suitable candidate already here. The trade negotiator, Gerald Reyes. Wren's claws dig deeper into her throne as she weighs her disgust against cold, hard necessity. Bring him, she finally commands. Halfway across the massive imperial complex, Gerald Reyes sits in a sterile conference room, frowning at economic projections. The 35-year-old human diplomat runs a hand through his close-cropped hair, feeling the familiar frustration of dealing with the technologically superior but maddeningly arrogant Draconis. The door bursts open. A phalanx of Imperial guards enters, their ceremonial armor clanking. You will come with us immediately, their leader barks. Gerald tenses, mind racing. What's this about? No questions. Follow. Minutes later, Gerald finds himself in a situation beyond his wildest imagination. A grim-faced Draconis official lays out the stakes. Mate with the Empress or risk interstellar war. This is insane, Gerald protests. I'm a diplomat, not some breeding stock. You misunderstand, human, the official hisses. This isn't a request. The fate of our empire, and your species standing within it, hangs in the balance. Failure means the collapse of human Draconis relations. Your people will suffer the consequences. Gerald's thoughts whirl. The Draconis, for all their technological might, have always treated humans as little more than a convenient labor force and resource pool. To need human help now, in such an intimate way, it's unprecedented. I need time to think, he begins, but the guards are already moving. There is no time, the official states flatly. The Empress awaits. As Gerald is escorted through opulent corridors towards the Imperial wing, the weight of responsibility settles on his broad shoulders. His actions in the next hours could reshape the balance of power in this sector of the galaxy. Behind the ornate doors of her private chambers, Empress Wren paces. Her claws click against a polished stone as she fights to control the burning need within her. For the first time in her long reign, she faces a threat she can't conquer through strength or cunning. To save her empire, she must place her trust and her body in the hands of a species she's long considered inferior. The doors open. Gerald steps inside, his face a mask of determination. Wren turns, amber eyes locking onto deep brown. Two individuals from vastly different worlds, forced together by biology and circumstance, stand at the precipice of a moment that will change everything. The doors open. Gerald steps inside, his face a mask of purpose. Wren turns, amber eyes locking onto deep brown. Two individuals from vastly different worlds, forced together by biology and circumstance, stand at the precipice of a moment that will change everything. Gerald's breath catches as he takes in the sheer opulence of Empress Wren's private chambers. Alien artifacts line the walls, their surfaces shimmering with an otherworldly iridescence. The air feels thick, heavy with an unfamiliar scent that makes his head swim. Wren reclines on an enormous structure that resembles a bed, her scales glistening with a feverish sheen. As Gerald approaches, her amber eyes fix upon him with an intensity that makes him want to shrink back. He sees a swirling mix of emotions in those alien orbs: desperation, disdain, and something else he can't quite place. The Draconis guards retreat swiftly, the sound of the closing door echoing in the vast chamber. Gerald swallows hard, suddenly aware of how alone he is with this powerful alien ruler. Wren's voice, usually so controlled, comes out strained. "Human? You understand why you're here?" Gerald nods, struggling to keep his voice steady. "Your Majesty, I've been informed of the situation." Wren's tail twitches and she visibly fights to maintain her composure. "Then you know what's at stake. The fate of my empire, my entire species, rests on this distasteful necessity." As she speaks, Gerald notices the tremors racking her body. Wren's claws dig into the bed-like structure, leaving deep furrows in its surface. Despite her obvious discomfort, she continues, outlining the dire consequences should they fail. Suddenly, a particularly violent tremor seizes the Empress. Her tail lashes out, catching a nearby table. Alien artifacts go flying, crashing to the floor in a cacophony of breaking materials Gerald can't even name. Startled, he takes an involuntary step back. Wren's eyes narrow dangerously, a low hiss escaping her. "Scared, little mammal?" she snarls, her words dripping with venom. "Of course you are. Your kind has always been weak, pathetic, and now the great Draconis Empire must stoop to using you as breeding stock." Gerald's diplomatic training kicks in, steadying him. He takes a deep breath, squaring his shoulders. "Your Majesty, I understand this is a difficult situation for you, but I assure you, I'm here to help. We both want the same thing, to ensure the stability of your empire and maintain peace between our species." Wren blinks, clearly taken aback by his calm response. As Gerald continues to speak, his voice steady and measured, he sees something shift in her expression. The naked contempt begins to fade, replaced by a grudging curiosity. But even as the tension in the room eases, Gerald notices a change coming over the Empress. Her scales begin to shift, taking on vibrant hues that seem to pulse and swirl. The effect is mesmerizing, and Gerald finds his gaze drawn to the play of light across her alien form. Wren's words become disjointed, her focus clearly slipping. You speak well for a human. Perhaps there's more to your kind than I—" Her sentence cuts off in a cry of pain. Wren doubles over, clutching at her midsection. Without thinking, Gerald rushes to her side, one hand reaching out to steady her. The moment their skin makes contact, it's as if a bolt of lightning passes between them. Gerald gasps, his nerve endings on fire. Wren lets out a sound unlike anything he's ever heard. Part growl, part purr, wholly alien and yet unmistakably filled with need. The air in the chamber grows thick and sweet, an intoxicating scent flooding Gerald's senses. His head swims, and he finds himself swaying on his feet, drawn inexorably closer to the Empress. Wren's scales radiate heat now, her amber eyes locked onto Gerald with an intensity that both thrills and terrifies him. Her clawed hand shoots out, grasping his arm with surprising gentleness. The touch sends jolts of pleasure coursing through his body, and Gerald finds himself leaning in, all thoughts of diplomacy and duty momentarily forgotten. "Perhaps," Wren murmurs, her voice a low rumble that Gerald feels in his bones, "this arrangement won't be quite as distasteful as I feared." Their faces are mere inches apart now, the air between them charged with possibility. Gerald's heart pounds in his chest, his body responding to Wren's alien pheromones in ways he never could have imagined. Just as the last shred of Gerald's self-control threatens to snap, the chamber doors burst open with a thunderous crash. A group of Draconis officials storms in, led by a particularly severe-looking individual Gerald recognizes as Prime Minister Zax. "Your Majesty," Zax calls out, his voice tinged with panic. "We feared for your safety. This human—" Ren recoils from Gerald as if burned, her expression morphing from desire to fury in an instant. She rises to her full, impressive height, towering over the cowering officials. "You dare," she roars, her voice shaking the very walls of the chamber. "You dare to interrupt me? To question my judgment?" As Ren unleashes her wrath upon the hapless officials, Gerald stumbles back, his pupils dilating from the whiplash of emotions. He watches the scene unfold, acutely aware of the precarious position he now finds himself in. The fate of two species hangs in the balance, with Gerald caught squarely in the middle. As he observes the interplay of alien politics and primal biology before him, one thing becomes crystal clear. The next few hours will test him in ways no diplomatic training could have ever prepared him for. The chamber doors slammed shut, leaving Gerald and Empress Ren alone once more. The sudden silence was deafening, broken only by Ren's labored breathing as she fought against her body's demands. Gerald stood frozen, his palms sweating from the sudden turn of events. The Empress's scales continued to pulse with an otherworldly glow, casting shifting patterns of light across the room. She turned to face him, her amber eyes burning with a mixture of fury and almost unchecked need. "Those incompetent fools," Ren hissed, her claws flexing against her palms. "They risk everything with their meddling." She took a step closer to Gerald, who instinctively tensed. The sweet, intoxicating scent that filled the air grew stronger, making his head swim. "Human," Ren began, her voice strained. "Gerald, there is much you do not understand about our ways." She gestured for him to sit on a nearby ornate bench, while she paced before him. Her tail lashed behind her, betraying her agitation. "The mating process of my species is not a simple act," Ren explained, her words coming in short bursts as she fought to maintain control. "It is a series of rituals, each designed to test compatibility and worthiness." Gerald listened intently, his diplomatic training kicking in as he absorbed this crucial information. "I see," he said carefully. "In these rituals, they're necessary for everything," Ren finished, whirling to face him. "Without completing these rituals, my body will reject any attempt at reproduction. My lineage will end, and the Empire will fall into chaos." Another wave of pain racked her body, and Ren stumbled. Without thinking, Gerald rose to steady her. The moment their skin made contact, a jolt of electricity seemed to pass between them. Ren's scales shifted, becoming softer where Gerald's hands touched her. She pulled away abruptly, her eyes wide with surprise. This is unexpected," she murmured, examining the changed texture of her scales. Gerald cleared his throat, trying to ignore the tingling sensation in his palms. "Your Majesty, I understand the gravity of the situation. I'm willing to help in any way I can." Ren regarded him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Finally, she nodded. "Very well. We will begin with the first ritual, a test of strength." Without warning, Ren lunged at Gerald. He barely had time to react, his military training kicking in as he sidestepped her attack. What followed was a whirlwind of motion as Human and Draconis grappled, each pushing their bodies to the limit. Despite her weakened state, Ren was incredibly strong. Her tail whipped around, nearly knocking Gerald off his feet. He countered by using her momentum against her, managing to unbalance the Empress. As they struggled, Gerald noticed more changes occurring in Ren's scales. Wherever their bodies made contact, her exterior became more pliable, almost adapting to accommodate human physiology. The sight was as fascinating as it was alarming. The exertion intensified Ren's condition. Her body temperature skyrocketed, and the sweet scent she emitted grew overpowering. Gerald found himself responding in ways he never thought possible, his own physiology seemingly adapting to match hers. Finally, after what felt like hours but was likely only minutes, they broke apart. Both were breathing heavily, covered in a sheen of sweat. Ren looked at Gerald with newfound respect, a hint of approval in her amber eyes. "You are stronger than I anticipated," she admitted grudgingly. "Perhaps there is hope for this union after all." Before Gerald could respond, Ren was moving again, She led him to a corner of her chambers where a strange device sat, its alien design unlike anything he had ever seen. The second ritual, Wren explained, her voice husky from exertion, a test of mental compatibility. This device will link our minds, allowing us to share thoughts and memories. Gerald eyed the machine warily. Is it safe? Wren's laugh was sharp and without humor. Safe? No. Necessary? Absolutely. With trepidation, Gerald allowed Wren to connect him to the device. The moment it activated, his world exploded into a kaleidoscope of alien sensations. He was bombarded with flashes of Wren's life, her ascension to the throne, the crushing weight of ruling an empire, and the bone-deep loneliness of her position. In turn, Wren experienced glimpses of Earth. Gerald felt her shock and wonder at the diversity of human culture, the range of emotions foreign to her species. Their minds intertwined, breaking down barriers of language and understanding. Suddenly, a dark undercurrent emerged in their shared consciousness. Gerald saw images of Draconis extremists, plotting in shadows. He felt Wren's fear and anger as she realized the threat from within her own empire. A faction determined to sever all ties with humanity, even if it meant overthrowing her. The revelation sent shockwaves through their mental link. Both Gerald and Wren understood in that moment that their union had become about far more than saving a royal lineage. The fate of both their species hung in the balance. As the mental link faded, they disconnected from the device. Gerald staggered, his legs shaking from the experience. Wren steadied him, her touch lingering longer than necessary. You've seen, she said quietly. You understand what's at stake. Gerald nodded, still trying to process everything he had learned. Your Majesty, Wren, she interrupted. After what we've shared, you may call me Wren. Their eyes met, a new understanding passing between them. The air in the chamber seemed to thicken, charged with tension and possibility. There is one final ritual, Wren said, her voice low and filled with an emotion Gerald couldn't quite name. The physical act itself. Gerald swallowed hard, suddenly acutely aware of their physical differences. Yet as he looked at Wren, he saw not an alien ruler, but a partner in a mission of utmost importance. I'm ready, he said, his voice steady despite the pounding of his heart. Wren's scales shimmered, their glow intensifying as she stepped closer to him. Then let us begin, she whispered, and may the fate of our peoples rest in our hands. Hands, the air between them crackled with anticipation and unspoken desire. Suddenly, a deafening explosion rocked the palace, shattering the moment. The floor beneath them trembled, and distant alarms began to wail. Gerald and Wren exchanged a look of shock before instinct took over. We're under attack, Wren hissed, her scales flaring with agitation. She lunged for a nearby control panel, her claws flying over the alien interface. Gerald's military training kicked in as he scanned the room for potential threats. Who would dare assault the Imperial Palace? Wren's eyes narrowed, her voice tight with fury. The extremists. They must have learned of your presence and moved up their timeline. Another explosion, closer this time, sent tremors through the walls. The sound of distant fighting echoed through the corridors. We need to move, Gerald said, his mind racing. Your chambers are too exposed. Wren nodded, grimacing as another wave of heat washed over her. There's a secure bunker beneath the palace. We can complete the ritual there. As they made for the door, it burst open. 3 Draconis rebels stormed in, their scales marked with the sigils of the extremist faction. Gerald reacted instantly, diving low and tackling the lead attacker around the waist. They crashed to the floor in a tangle of limbs. The rebel's claws raked across Gerald's back, tearing his shirt and drawing blood, but the human's smaller size and agility gave him an advantage in close quarters. He managed to wrap his arms around the Draconis' neck, applying pressure to the alien's pressure points. Nearby, Wren grappled with the other 2 attackers. Despite her weakened state, her imperial training and natural strength allowed her to hold her own. She slammed one rebel's head against the wall with a sickening crack, then whirled to face the other. Gerald felt his opponent go limp and released his hold. He scrambled to his feet, searching for a weapon. His eyes fell on an ornate staff mounted on the wall. He grabbed it, testing its weight. The remaining rebel had Wren pinned against a column, his claws inches from her throat. Gerald sprinted forward, swinging the staff with all his might. It connected with the back of the rebel's head, sending him crumpling to the floor. Wren pushed the unconscious form away, her chest heaving. "Not bad for a human," she said, a hint of admiration in her voice. Gerald offered her a tight smile. "We make a good team." They made their way into the corridor, now filled with smoke and the sounds of distant fighting. Palace guards and rebel forces clashed throughout the complex, turning the once opulent halls into a war zone. As they rounded a corner, they nearly collided with a familiar figure. Prime Minister Zax leaned heavily against the wall, clutching a wound on his side. "Your Majesty," he gasped, relief evident in his voice. "The rebels? They've taken the main communication center. We're cut off from Earth and our own forces." Gerald's mind raced, piecing together a plan. "Is there a backup system? Somewhere we can send a distress signal?" Zax nodded weakly. "The emergency array. In the bunker." Wren's eyes met Gerald's, understanding passing between them. "It's our best chance," she said. "We can complete the ritual and call for help." They set off through the chaos of the palace, Wren leaning on Gerald for support as her condition worsened. The sweet scent she emitted grew stronger, making it difficult for Gerald to focus. But the constant threat of discovery kept him alert. They ducked into alcoves and secret passages to avoid rebel patrols, relying on Wren's intimate knowledge of the palace layout. At one point, they were forced to hide in a narrow maintenance shaft as a group of rebels passed by, their bodies pressed close in the confined space. As they neared the entrance to the bunker, they encountered a group of draconian scientists fleeing their labs. One of them, a female with iridescent scales, recognized the Empress. "Your Majesty," she exclaimed, "we've been working on something that might help. A compound to enhance cross-species compatibility." Wren's eyes widened. "How quickly can it be administered?" The scientist produced a small vial. "It's ready now, but it's untested. We don't know the full effects." Gerald and Wren exchanged a look. The sounds of fighting were growing closer, and Wren's condition was deteriorating rapidly. They had to make a choice, and fast. "What do you think?" Wren asked, her voice strained. Gerald hesitated, weighing the risks against their increasingly desperate situation. The fate of two species hung in the balance, and time was running out. With a shared nod of understanding, Gerald and Wren turned to the scientist. "We'll do it," Gerald said firmly. The lead scientist, Dr. Zara, stepped forward. Her intricate scale patterns shimmered in the dim light, denoting her high rank in the scientific community. "This way quickly," she urged, ushering them into a nearby laboratory. As they entered, Dr. Zara began preparing the experimental treatment. "This procedure will enhance your biological compatibility," she explained, her claws deftly manipulating complex equipment. "It involves targeted genetic modifications and hormonal adjustments for both of you." Gerald and Wren exchanged a nervous glance as they positioned themselves on adjacent examination tables. The sounds of battle grew closer, adding a sense of urgency to the already tense atmosphere. "Beginning the procedure now," Dr. Zara announced, activating a series of machines. A burning sensation coursed through Gerald's veins as the treatment began. He gritted his teeth, fighting the urge to cry out. Beside him, Wren's scales began to shift and ripple, adapting to the modifications. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the laboratory. Dr. Zara's head snapped up, her eyes wide with alarm. "The rebels have detected our energy signature," she hissed. "They're converging on our location." Loyal guards rushed to barricade the laboratory entrance, as Dr. Zara and her team worked frantically to complete the procedure. The rhythmic thud of approaching footsteps mixed with the whine of energy weapons, creating a cacophony of impending danger. As the treatment reached its final stages, an unexpected phenomenon occurred. Gerald's skin began to emit a faint, pulsing glow. He turned his head to see Wren's scales illuminated with the same bioluminescent light, perfectly synchronized with his own. Dr. Zara's eyes widened in astonishment. "Fascinating," she breathed. "This glow, it's a sign of your increasing biological harmony. However," she added, her tone growing serious, "it may make you easier targets for the rebels if you attempt to escape." The procedure complete, Gerald and Wren rose from the examination tables. The air between them crackled with an intensity neither had experienced before. Wren's heat cycle reached a critical point, her body radiating waves of pheromones that made Gerald's head spin. "We need to complete the mating ritual," Wren gasped, her voice tight with urgency. "Now!" A violent explosion rocked the laboratory, sending equipment crashing to the floor. The rebels had breached the outer defenses. "This way," Dr. Zara shouted, leading them to a hidden alcove at the back of the lab. "It's not ideal, but it's all we have." Gerald and Wren ducked into the small space as chaos erupted around them. The sounds of energy weapons and hand-to-hand combat filled the air as loyal guards engaged the advancing rebels. In the confined space of the alcove, Gerald and Wren faced each other. Their synchronized bioluminescence intensified, bathing them in an otherworldly glow. With no time for hesitation, they began the final mating ritual. Their newfound biological compatibility allowed them to overcome their physiological differences with surprising ease. As they joined, their luminescent aura grew brighter, pulsing in time with their movements. Unbeknownst to the couple, their unique energy signature triggered an ancient defense system within the palace walls. Designed eons ago to protect the royal bloodline, the system recognized their union as the fulfillment of an old prophecy. As Gerald and Wren neared the completion of their ritual, the ancient defenses sprang to life. Force fields materialized throughout the palace complex, separating loyal forces from the rebels. Hidden compartments opened, revealing automated defense turrets that targeted the insurrectionists with deadly precision. The intense energies released by their union cascaded through the palace's systems. In the bunker far below, the backup communication array activated, broadcasting a powerful distress signal to Earth and loyal Draconis outposts. As the mating ritual concluded, Gerald and Wren emerged from the alcove, their bodies still emitting a soft glow. They found the laboratory secured, with Dr. Zara and her team working feverishly to analyze the data from their unprecedented union. "Your Majesty," a guard approached, bowing quickly, "the tide has turned. The ancient defenses have activated, and we're pushing the rebels back." Before they could fully process this information, a new commotion arose from the laboratory entrance. A final group of rebel elite forces burst through, led by a towering male Draconis with battle-scarred scales and glinting cybernetic enhancements. "General Vex," Wren snarled, recognizing the rebel leader. Vex's eyes narrowed as he took in the scene, his gaze lingering on Gerald and Wren's still glowing forms. "So," he growled, "the abomination is complete, but it changes nothing. Your perversion of our pure bloodline ends here." Gerald stepped forward, positioning himself between Wren and the advancing rebels. The residual energy from their union thrummed through his body, heightening his senses and reflexes. As Vex raised his weapon, time seemed to slow. Gerald knew that this moment would determine not just their fate, but the future of human-Draconis relations. With the echoes of their mating ritual still resonating through the palace defenses, he prepared to face this final, crucial challenge. The air crackled with tension as Gerald's muscles tensed, ready to spring into action. In that split second before chaos erupted, Dr. Zara's voice cut through the silence. "Wait!" she cried, thrusting a small device into Gerald's hand. "Take this!" Gerald glanced down at the object. A sleek, palm-sized disc with pulsing lights that matched the rhythm of his and Wren's bioluminescent glow. He recognized it instantly as some kind of advanced technology. "It's a prototype shield generator," Dr. Zara explained hurriedly. "It's designed to harness the energy signature from your union. It might be your only chance." Without hesitation, Gerald activated the device. A shimmering force field sprang to life around him and Wren, just as General Vex opened fire. The energy blast ricocheted off the shield, leaving scorch marks on the laboratory walls. "Run!" Gerald shouted, grabbing Wren's hand. They sprinted towards the exit, their linked hands pulsing with shared energy that seemed to strengthen the force field. As they burst into the corridor, the full scale of the battle became apparent. Loyal guards clashed with rebel forces, the air thick with energy weapon discharge and the acrid smell of ozone. Gerald and Wren's bioluminescent glow intensified as they moved, causing nearby sections of wall to hum and pulse in response. They rounded a corner and nearly collided with a group of figures. Gerald tensed, ready for another fight, but relaxed when he recognized Prime Minister Zax at the head of a squad of loyal Draconi soldiers. "Your Majesty, Ambassador," Zax exclaimed, relief evident in his voice. His eyes widened as he took in their glowing forms and the shimmering force field. "We've managed to push back the rebels in this sector, but we have a bigger problem." Wren stepped forward, her scales shimmering with residual energy. "What is it, Prime Minister?" Zax's expression darkened. "The rebels have taken control of the palace's main power core. It's preventing the full activation of our ancient defense systems. If we can reach it and reactivate it, we might be able to turn the tide decisively." Gerald's mind raced, military training kicking into high gear. "Where's the power core located?" "Deep within the bowels of the palace," Wren answered, her voice tinged with drive. "I know the way." As they set off, Gerald found himself marveling at how in sync he felt with Wren. Their movements were perfectly coordinated, almost as if they shared a single mind. He noticed that he could now understand the rapid-fire Draconis language being spoken around him, a side effect of their mating bond he hadn't anticipated. Their path to the power core was fraught with danger. Rebel forces had erected makeshift barricades and set traps throughout the palace. Gerald's human ingenuity, combined with Wren's intimate knowledge of the palace's secret passages, allowed them to navigate the obstacles with surprising ease. As they descended deeper into the palace, the ancient structure seemed to respond to their presence. Dormant systems flickered to life in their wake, holographic displays sputtering and sparking as if trying to communicate. They encountered a heavily fortified rebel position guarding the approach to the power core. Gerald and Wren shared a look, a silent plan forming between them. With a nod, they sprang into action. Their movements were a blur of synchronized efficiency. Gerald ducked and weaved through enemy fire, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to close the distance quickly. Wren followed, her Draconis strength augmented by a new agility that matched Gerald's own. Together, they tore through the rebel defenses. Gerald's tactical mind melded seamlessly with Wren's raw power, each anticipating the other's moves perfectly. In a matter of minutes, the rebel position lay in ruins. Panting slightly, they approached the entrance to the power core. The massive doors were sealed shut, a complex locking mechanism glowing ominously. "Allow me," Wren said, stepping forward. She placed her hand on the lock, and to everyone's surprise, it began to pulse in time with their bioluminescent glow. With a series of clicks and whirs, the door slid open. They rushed inside, only to find themselves face to face with a contingent of rebel technicians led by a tall, imposing Draconis with cybernetic enhancements gleaming along his scales. "Dr. Krell!" Wren hissed, recognizing the renegade scientist. Krell's eyes widened as he took in Gerald and Wren's joined hands and glowing forms. His face contorted in a mask of disgust and rage. You've actually done it. You've polluted our pure bloodline with this human filth." Before anyone could react, Krell thumped his hand down on a nearby console. Alarms blared throughout the chamber as a computerized voice announced, "Power core meltdown sequence initiated. Detonation in 10 minutes. Gerald's heart raced as he assessed the situation. The power core, a massive crystalline structure dominating the center of the room, pulsed with an unstable energy that threatened to tear the entire palace apart. "We need to stop the meltdown," he shouted over the alarms, already moving towards the main control panel. As his hands flew over the alien interface, Gerald was struck by a sudden understanding of the complex Draconis technology. Knowledge seemed to flow into his mind, guided by an unseen force. "The fail-safe protocols," Wren's voice echoed in his head, though her lips hadn't moved. "Focus on overriding them." Their shared consciousness allowed them to work in perfect harmony, 4 hands moving as one across the controls. As they worked, their bioluminescent glow intensified, seeming to interface directly with the power core systems. Suddenly, the chamber doors burst open. General Vex stormed in, leading a squad of elite rebel troops. "Stop them!" he roared, raising his weapon. Prime Minister Zax and the loyal Draconis soldiers moved to intercept, engaging the rebels in a fierce firefight. Energy blasts crisscrossed the chamber, forcing Gerald and Ren to duck behind the control panel. The shield generator sputtered and flickered, struggling to maintain its protection under the barrage of weapons fire and the intense energy emissions from the destabilizing power core. "It's not working," Gerald grunted, his fingers flying across the controls. "The meltdown sequence is too far gone." Ren's eyes met his, a desperate plan forming between them. "Then we do this the hard way," she said. Together they stood and placed their hands directly on the pulsing surface of the power core. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Energy surged through their bodies, their bioluminescent glow erupting into a blinding radiance that filled the entire chamber. Gerald felt as if his very atoms were being torn apart and reassembled. Through their joined minds, he could sense Ren experiencing the same sensation. They were becoming conduits, channels for the raw power of the core to flow through. The unstable energy stabilized, then began to spread throughout the palace. Ancient systems roared to life, defense turrets emerging from hidden compartments. Force fields sprang up, separating loyalist forces from the rebels. As the power surge reached its peak, Gerald heard a new voice. Not Ren's, not his own, but something else entirely. It spoke of protocols of long-dormant systems, of a grand design set in motion eons ago. The voice grew stronger, more defined, as if gaining sentience with each passing second. It spoke of unity, of a bridge between species, of a destiny long foretold. As the energy wave subsided, Gerald and Ren collapsed to the ground, their bodies still faintly glowing. The chamber had fallen silent, the rebel forces subdued by the newly awakened defense systems. General Vex, his forces defeated, made a final, desperate lunge toward the couple. Before he could reach them, a shimmering field of energy encased him, freezing him in place. The same voice that had spoken in their minds now filled the chamber, emanating from every surface. Threat neutralized, ancient protocols activated, a new era begins. Gerald struggled to his feet, helping Ren up as well. They looked around the chamber in awe, seeing the once familiar technology transformed into something new and wondrous. Prime Minister Zax approached them, his eyes wide with a mixture of reverence and fear. "Your Majesty, Ambassador, what have you done?" Before they could answer, the voice spoke again, this time addressing everyone present. "I am Unity," it declared, "the culmination of the grand experiment begun by the founders. The union of human and Draconis has unlocked the next phase of our shared evolution." Gerald and Ren exchanged a look, understanding dawning in their linked minds. They had not just saved the palace or stopped a rebellion, they had set in motion events that would reshape the future of both their species. As the implications of what had transpired began to sink in, alarms sounded throughout the chamber. New holographic displays sprang to life, showing the palace, the planet, and beyond, all coming online, all changing. Unity's voice resonated once more. "The experiment continues. The true challenge begins now." Gerald tightened his grip on Ren's hand, both of them still glowing faintly. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together, as the living bridge between two worlds and the key to unlocking the secrets of their shared destiny. Gerald and Ren stood in the transformed power core chamber, their bodies still pulsing with residual energy. The voice of Unity echoed around them, its final words hanging in the air. "The experiment continues. The true challenge begins now." As if on cue, the walls of the chamber began to shift and reconfigure. Smooth, organic-looking panels slid into place, creating new doorways and passages. The transformation spread outward, rippling through the entire palace complex. "What's happening?" Gerald asked, his enhanced senses picking up the subtle vibrations of the changing structure. Ren's eyes widened in awe. "The palace is adapting. It's becoming something new, something designed for both our species." Prime Minister Zax approached them, his scales shimmering with a newfound luminescence. "Your Majesty, Ambassador, we're receiving reports from all over the planet. The energy released during your union has triggered changes in our people." Before they could fully process this information, A commotion at the chamber entrance drew their attention. A group of human and Draconis officials rushed in, led by a tall, imposing woman with steel-gray hair and piercing blue eyes. Admiral Helena Frost, Gerald breathed, recognizing the renowned human diplomat. Admiral Frost's gaze locked onto Gerald, her eyebrows rising in surprise. Ambassador Williams, you've, changed. Gerald glanced down at his hands, noticing for the first time the faint bioluminescent glow emanating from his skin. He could feel subtle alterations in his physiology, a merging of human and Draconis traits. It's not just me, he said, gesturing to the Draconis around them. Many exhibited subtle human characteristics, altered bone structure, changes in scale patterns. Dr. Zara pushed her way through the crowd, her eyes alight with scientific fervor. It's happening everywhere, she announced, holding up a data pad. The energy release has activated dormant genetic sequences in both humans and Draconis throughout the Empire. The chamber erupted in a flurry of voices, questions and concerns flying back and forth. Unity's voice cut through the chaos, its tone calm but authoritative. The hybridization process has begun, it declared. This is the culmination of the grand experiment initiated by the founders eons ago. A hush fell over the room as Unity projected a holographic display showing the spread of genetic changes across the planet and beyond. The process is irreversible, Unity continued, and it will solve many long-standing issues plaguing both species. Admiral Frost stepped forward, her expression a mixture of concern and perseverance. This situation is unprecedented. We need a framework to manage these changes and prevent panic. Gerald and Wren exchanged a glance, their linked minds coming to the same conclusion. A joint human Draconis council, they said in unison. Frost nodded approvingly. Exactly, and you two should lead it. Your unique status makes you the ideal bridge between our peoples. As discussions about the council's formation began, alarms blared through the chamber. New holographic displays sprang to life, showing scenes of chaos on Draconis colony worlds. Reports of violence between those embracing the changes and those resisting, Zax reported grimly. Gerald's military training kicked in. We need to act fast. If this spreads... We'll go, Wren interrupted, her voice firm. Our presence might help calm fears, show that this integration can work. Protests erupted from both human and Draconis officials, citing the risks of sending such valuable figures into potential danger. But Gerald and Wren stood firm, their grit strengthened by their bond. As the debate raged on, Unity's voice once again filled the chamber. Alert! Deep space signal detected. Origin unknown. Possible link to Draconis progenitors. The room fell silent, the implications of this new development sinking in. Gerald felt a surge of anticipation mingled with trepidation. This changes everything, he said, turning to Wren. We're not just going to the colonies to quell unrest. We might be preparing for first contact with the beings who created your entire species. Wren nodded, her eyes shining with a mixture of excitement and willpower. Then we have no time to waste. They made their way to the palace hangar, where a sleek, hybrid vessel awaited them. Its design was unlike anything Gerald had ever seen, a perfect blend of human and Draconis technology. As they boarded the ship, Gerald couldn't help but feel the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. The fate of two civilizations, the future of a new hybrid species, and the potential encounter with an ancient, unknown race. All of it hinged on the success of their mission. The ship's engines hummed to life, resonating with the energy flowing through Gerald and Wren's bodies. As they prepared for takeoff, Gerald caught Wren's eye. No words were needed. Their linked minds shared the same thought. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The hangar doors slid open, revealing the star-studded expanse of space. With a burst of energy, the hybrid ship shot forward, carrying Gerald and Wren towards their destiny and the next chapter in the grand experiment that had brought their species together. The hybrid ship shot forward, leaving the Draconis homeworld behind. As they accelerated into the vast expanse of space, Gerald and Wren settled into the command center of their new vessel. Unity outdid itself with this design, Gerald remarked. running his hand over the smooth, organic-looking control panel. The ship, a perfect blend of human and Draconis technology, hummed with an energy that seemed to resonate with their own bodies. Ren nodded, her eyes scanning the holographic displays. It's like an extension of ourselves. I can almost feel the ship's systems as if they were part of my own body. As they journeyed further from the planet, both Gerald and Ren began to notice subtle changes in their physiology. Gerald's skin took on a faint, iridescent sheen, reminiscent of Draconis scales. He flexed his hands, marveling at the new texture. Fascinating, he murmured. It seems the ship's environment is accelerating our hybrid transformation. Ren, meanwhile, found herself adjusting the environmental controls. My body temperature, it's stabilizing at a human norm, she observed. I no longer need the higher ambient temperature I once required. Their wonder at these changes was cut short as the ship's sensors blared an alert. A holographic display materialized before them, showing their first destination, Novus Prime. Something's wrong, Ren said, her brow furrowing as she analyzed the data. There's an unauthorized energy signature in orbit around the planet. Gerald leaned in, his military training kicking into high gear. It's a blockade, he realized, noting the formation of the ships, and not a friendly one. Before they could discuss further, a transmission cut through their communications channel. A gruff, authoritative voice filled the command center. Attention, human Draconis abomination, the voice growled. This is Commander Silax of the Purity Front. You will surrender yourselves immediately for genetic purification, or we will commence orbital bombardment of the colony below. Gerald and Ren exchanged a grim look. The situation had escalated far beyond what they had anticipated. We need to get past that blockade, Gerald said, his mind racing through tactical options. Ren's eyes lit up with an idea. The cloaking technology, she said. Unity designed it to be undetectable by both human and Draconis sensors. It might just work against these rebels. Gerald nodded, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Let's put it to the test. With a series of swift commands, the ship's cloaking system engaged. The view outside their viewport shimmered and then seemed to disappear, replaced by a perfect projection of the space behind them. They held their breath as they maneuvered past the rebel ships, each moment feeling like an eternity. But the gambit paid off. The blockade remained oblivious to their presence. As they entered Novus Prime's atmosphere, the true extent of the crisis became apparent. The colony's capital city was in chaos. Streets that should have been bustling with a mix of human and Draconis citizens were instead filled with clashing mobs. We need to find the colonial leadership, Ren said, her voice tight with concern. They landed the ship in a secluded area on the outskirts of the city. As they emerged, their enhanced senses immediately picked up the sounds and smells of conflict. Shouts, the acrid scent of smoke, the distant rumble of explosions. Making their way through back alleys and side streets, they avoided the worst of the fighting. Their destination was a nondescript building that housed the entrance to the colonial government's emergency bunker. Inside, they were met by Governor Thela, a Draconis female with worry etched across her scaled features. Ambassador, Your Majesty, she greeted them, her relief palpable. Your arrival couldn't be more timely. In the safety of the bunker, Thela briefed them on the situation. The news of your union and the genetic changes has split our population, she explained. Without concrete proof of the benefits, I fear we may lose control entirely. As they discussed strategies to quell the unrest, a familiar voice echoed through the room. It was Unity speaking through their ship's communication link. I have analyzed the rebel blockade, Unity announced. There is a weakness in their shielding that can be exploited. However, it will require a direct interface with the colony's power distribution center. Gerald looked at Ren, understanding passing between them without words. It was a risk, but one they had to take. We'll do it, Gerald said firmly. Guide us through the process, Unity. As they prepared to leave the safety of the bunker, Governor Thela introduced them to a new ally, Dr. Kira, a Draconis geneticist who had been studying the hybridization process. Your physiological changes are remarkable, Dr. Kira observed, her scientific curiosity evident. I believe my research could help demonstrate the positive aspects of this transformation to the populace. With their team assembled, they set out into the chaotic streets of the colony. Their destination, the power distribution center, and their best hope for neutralizing the rebel threat looming above the city. As they approached the power distribution center, Gerald felt a sudden wave of dizziness. He stumbled, catching himself against a nearby wall. "Gerald!" Wren's voice was infused with concern. "Are you all right?" Before he could respond, a surge of energy coursed through his body. He gasped, his vision blurring as his skin began to shimmer with an intense bioluminescent glow. Beside him, Wren let out a startled cry, her body undergoing a similar transformation. Dr. Kira rushed to their side, her eyes wide with a mixture of scientific fascination and worry. "Incredible," she breathed, pulling out a handheld scanner. "Your hybrid physiology is reacting to something. But what?" Unity's voice crackled through their communication devices. "Alert! Massive energy surge detected from the unknown object at the edge of the solar system. The surge appears to be triggering accelerated changes in Ambassador Williams and Empress Wren's genetic structure." Gerald gritted his teeth, fighting to maintain his composure as waves of sensation washed over him. He could feel his body changing, adapting, becoming something new with each passing second. Beside him, Wren's scales shifted and rippled, taking on a more human-like texture in some areas, while becoming more pronounced in others. "We need to get them back to the ship," Dr. Kira said urgently. "I need to run more comprehensive tests." Governor Thala nodded, quickly organizing a security detail to escort them back to the Nexus. As they made their way through the chaotic streets, Gerald and Wren leaned on each other for support, their bodies continuing to fluctuate between more human and more draconis forms. Back aboard the Nexus, Dr. Kira wasted no time in setting up a makeshift lab. Gerald and Wren lay on examination tables, their bodies still pulsing with energy. The geneticist worked feverishly, analyzing data as it streamed across her screens. "This is astonishing," she muttered, her eyes darting between her patients and the readouts. "The energy surge has accelerated your hybridization process exponentially. Your bodies are adapting at an unprecedented rate." Gerald flexed his hand, watching in amazement as his fingers elongated, becoming more draconis-like, before shifting back to a human form. "We can control it," he realized, concentrating on the sensation. With a thought, he felt his skin harden into scales, then soften back to human texture. Wren sat up, her eyes wide with wonder. "I can feel it too. It's like our bodies are finally catching up to our minds." Before they could explore their new abilities further, Unity's voice filled the ship's communication system. "Urgent update. I have partially deciphered the signal from the approaching object. It contains genetic information consistent with both human and draconis DNA." The implications of this revelation hung heavy in the air. Dr. Kira's hands trembled as she input new parameters into her analysis. This could mean the object might be connected to the progenitor race that created the draconis. As they processed this information, another transmission cut through. Admiral Frost's hologram appeared, her expression grave. "Gerald, Wren, we have a situation. Earth's governments are growing restless. Some factions are pushing for preemptive military action against the approaching object. We need you back here to help mediate." Gerald nodded, moving to stand. "We'll depart immediately." His words were cut short by a violent explosion that rocked the ship. Alarms blared as Unity's voice rang out. "Alert! Hostile forces detected. The Nexus is under attack." Through the ship's viewports, they could see a group of fighters swarming towards them. At their head was a larger vessel, its design a twisted mockery of human draconis integration. "This is Vexthor of the Purity Front," a voice boomed through the ship's speakers. "Surrender the abominations for genetic purification, or we will destroy your vessel and everyone aboard." Gerald and Wren exchanged a determined look. Without a word, they moved in unison towards the ship's control center. As they approached the main console, Gerald felt a surge of energy coursing through his body. Electricity crackled at his fingertips, arcing between his hands. Wren placed her hand on the ship's controls, her body shimmering as she consciously altered her density. I can interface with the ship's systems, she said, her voice filled with wonder. It's like I can feel every circuit, every power conduit. As Vex Thor's forces opened fire, Gerald raised his hands instinctively. A powerful bioelectric field exploded outward, enveloping the Nexus in a protective barrier. The enemy weapons fire dissipated harmlessly against it. Dr. Kira watched in amazement as the hybrid couple worked in perfect synchronization, their new abilities allowing them to control the ship as if it were an extension of their own bodies. This is incredible, she breathed. Their genetic structure is stabilizing, adapting to the heightened energy output. The battle raged around them, Vex Thor's ships pressing their attack with increasing desperation. But with each passing moment, Gerald and Ren's control over their new abilities grew stronger. They weaved the Nexus through the onslaught, retaliating with precision strikes that disabled rather than destroyed their attackers. As the last of Vex Thor's ships retreated, a new alarm sounded. Unity's voice cut through the post-battle silence. Alert! Main propulsion system damaged during the attack. Unable to achieve escape velocity. Gerald and Ren shared a look of persistence. Unity, Gerald called out. Can Ren and I interface directly with the ship's systems? Use our energy to jumpstart the engines? There was a pause before the AI responded. Theoretically possible, but the process would further accelerate your genetic changes. The consequences are unknown and potentially dangerous. Dr. Kira stepped forward, her expression a mix of concern and scientific curiosity. It's risky, but it might be our only option. I'll monitor your vital signs throughout the process. Without hesitation, Gerald and Ren moved to opposite sides of the ship's central power core. As they placed their hands on the interface panels, they felt an immediate connection, their consciousness expanding to encompass the entire vessel. Energy surged through their bodies, the ship's systems coming alive around them. In that moment of profound connection, fragmented visions flashed through their minds, glimpses of the approaching object, of beings both familiar and alien, of a plan set in motion eons ago. The Nexus shuddered, its engines roaring to life with newfound power. As the ship broke free of Novus Prime's atmosphere, Gerald and Ren disengaged from the interface, their bodies still humming with energy. Course set for the Draconis homeworld, Unity announced. Estimated arrival time, 6 hours. As the hybrid ship accelerated into deep space, Gerald and Ren knew their journey was just getting started. The changes to their bodies continued, their powers growing with each passing moment. And somewhere out there, the mysterious object drew ever closer, carrying with it the key to their shared destiny. In the Nexus's command center, a new alert flashed across the screens. Unity's voice carried a note of urgency. Multiple unauthorized launches detected from hidden bases on the Draconis homeworld. A fleet of ships, believed to be under the command of General Vex's remaining forces, is on an intercept course with the approaching object. Gerald and Ren exchanged a grim look. The race against time had begun, and the fate of both their species hung in the balance. Balance. The Nexus surged forward, its engines straining against the gravitational pull of Novus Prime. As they broke free of the planet's atmosphere, Gerald and Ren felt a familiar tingling sensation course through their bodies. It's happening again, Ren gasped, her scales rippling and shifting beneath her skin. Gerald nodded, feeling his own body changing. His skin hardened, taking on a more pronounced scale-like texture. He flexed his fingers, marveling at the new durability of his epidermis. Dr. Kira rushed to their side, her scanner whirring as she passed it over their bodies. Fascinating, she murmured. Your genetic structures are adapting to the cosmic environment. Gerald, your skin appears to be developing enhanced resistance to radiation. And Ren, your internal organs are shifting to process oxygen more efficiently in various atmospheres. As the Nexus hurtled through space, Unity's voice filled the command center. Alert! Massive energy wave detected emanating from the object at the edge of the solar system. Before anyone could react, the wave washed over the ship. The Nexus shuddered violently, its systems fluctuating wildly. Warning klaxons blared as the power grid threatened to collapse. Acting on instinct, Gerald and Ren placed their hands on the ship's control panels. Energy surged through their bodies as they connected with the Nexus's core. They became living conduits, channeling and stabilizing the ship's power. Unity status report, Gerald called out, his voice strained from the effort. Power levels stabilizing, the AI responded. Hybrid interface successful. However, I am detecting similar energy fluctuations throughout the Draconis Empire and on Earth. Dr. Kira's eyes widened as she analyzed the incoming data. The wave, it's triggering latent genetic sequences in both humans and Draconis. The hybridization process is accelerating on a massive scale. Before they could process this information, Admiral Frost's hologram flickered to life. Her face was grim as she spoke. Gerald Wren, we have a critical situation. General Vex's loyalists have launched a rebel fleet from hidden bases on the Draconis homeworld. They're engaging loyalist forces in orbit and attempting to deploy a superweapon designed to forcibly reverse the hybridization process. Gerald and Wren exchanged determined looks. We're on our way, Admiral, Wren assured her. We'll handle this. As the Nexus approached the Draconis homeworld, they encountered a massive debris field from the ongoing battle. Gerald and Wren worked in perfect synchronization, their enhanced reflexes and processing speeds allowing them to navigate the treacherous obstacle course. I have a plan, Gerald said, his mind racing. We can use our new abilities to disable the rebel fleet without causing casualties. Wren nodded, understanding flowing between them without words. As they neared the planet's orbit, they sprang into action. Gerald tapped into the Nexus's weapons systems, his bioelectric field amplifying their power. He fired a series of precisely calibrated energy pulses designed to overload the rebel ship's systems without causing permanent damage. Simultaneously, Wren reached out with her mind, manipulating the gravitational fields around the rebel fleet. A shimmering bubble of distorted space-time enveloped the ships, preventing their escape and minimizing collateral damage. The strategy worked perfectly. Within minutes, the rebel fleet hung motionless in space, their systems disabled and their crews unharmed. But as Gerald and Wren prepared to board the rebel flagship, Unity's urgent voice cut through their moment of triumph. Alert! Massive power surge detected from the rebel superweapon. Energy signature consistent with a large-scale genetic destabilization wave. Dr. Kira's face paled. If that wave hits the planet, it could destroy the genetic structure of every hybrid on the surface. Without hesitation, Gerald and Wren moved to the Nexus's main reactor. We're going to channel the ship's energy through our bodies, Gerald explained quickly. Create a counterwave to nullify the weapon's effects. The risk to your physiology, Dr. Kira began, but Wren cut her off. We don't have a choice, she said firmly. They placed their hands on the reactor's interface, bracing themselves for what was to come. As the energy flooded their bodies, pain unlike anything they had ever experienced tore through them. Their hybrid features became more pronounced, scales and human skin blending in intricate patterns across their bodies. In that moment of intense connection, their minds melded once again. A clear telepathic message pierced through the haze of pain emanating from the approaching progenitor vessel. Children of two worlds, your journey is but the beginning. The hybridization is part of a grand design set in motion millennia ago. You are the key. The message cut off abruptly as the strain became too much. Gerald and Wren collapsed to the floor, their bodies smoking and their hybrid features more pronounced than ever. Dr. Kira rushed to their aid, her medical scanners indicating continued genetic changes at an accelerated rate. As the Nexus's crew worked frantically to stabilize them, Unity reported success. Superweapon neutralized, immediate threat to hybridization process averted. Admiral Frost's hologram reappeared, her expression a mix of relief and urgency. We need you planetside immediately. World leaders from Earth and the Draconis Empire have convened an emergency summit. Your presence is crucial. Dr. Kira interjected, her voice filled with concern. Admiral, Gerald and Wren's genetic changes have reached a critical point. They're on the brink of a significant metamorphosis. We don't know what will happen next. As the Nexus began its descent towards the planet's surface, Gerald and Wren regained consciousness. They could feel the changes within their bodies, a sense of impending transformation hanging over them. But there was no time to dwell on it. The fate of two civilizations hung in the balance. Wren looked at Gerald. her eyes filled with persistence. Whatever happens next, we face it together. Gerald nodded, taking her hand as they prepared to disembark. The Nexus touched down on the Draconis homeworld, the door hissing open to reveal a world in turmoil. As they stepped out into the unknown, they knew that their greatest challenge still lay ahead. As they stepped onto the surface of the Draconis homeworld, Gerald and Ren felt the ground beneath their feet vibrate with the energy of a world in turmoil. The air crackled with tension as they made their way toward the emergency summit location. Gerald's skin tingled, an iridescent sheen spreading across his arms and face. Beside him, Ren's features shifted subtly, her Draconis characteristics softening into more human-like contours. Gerald, Ren's voice echoed in his mind, their mental link strengthening with each passing moment. Something's happening to us. Before he could respond, a delegation led by Admiral Frost approached. The Admiral's eyes widened as she took in their altered appearances. "We need to get you to the summit immediately," she said, her voice tight with urgency. They were ushered into a massive dome structure that served as the conference hall. As the door slid open, a hush fell over the assembled leaders. Hundreds of eyes, both human and Draconis, turned to stare at the hybrid couple. Admiral Frost stepped forward, her voice carrying across the stunned silence. "Esteemed leaders, I present Gerald and Empress Ren, representing the most advanced stage of human Draconis hybridization." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some leaned forward in fascination, while others recoiled in visible discomfort. Before anyone could speak, a holographic display flickered to life in the center of the hall. Reports from across both Earth and Draconis colonies flooded in, detailing widespread genetic changes among millions of individuals. "It's happening everywhere," a human diplomat exclaimed, his face pale with shock. A Draconis elder rose, scales dripping. "This is an attack on our very essence. We must put a stop to it immediately." The hall erupted into chaos, voices shouting over one another as fear and confusion took hold. Gerald stepped forward, intending to speak, when a searing pain shot through his body. Beside him, Ren let out a gasp, her knees buckling. They collapsed to the floor, their bodies racked with spasms. Dr. Kira pushed through the crowd, her medical scanner whirring as she knelt beside them. "Their transformation is accelerating," she announced, her fingers flying over her equipment. "I need to stabilize them now." As Dr. Kira worked, Unity's voice cut through the commotion. "Alert! Multiple unidentified objects detected entering the solar system. Energy signatures match the approaching progenitor vessel." The news sent another wave of panic through the assembly. Leaders argued vehemently, their voices rising in pitch and volume. "We must prepare our defenses," shouted a human general. "No, we should attempt communication first," countered a Draconis diplomat. Amidst the cacophony, Gerald and Ren stirred, their eyes snapping open in unison. They rose to their feet, their bodies now exhibiting even more pronounced hybrid features. Gerald's skin shimmered with an otherworldly light, while Ren's eyes glowed with an inner fire. "Listen to us," they spoke in perfect harmony, their voices carrying a weight that silenced the room. "We've seen fragments of a greater truth." They described the vision they had experienced on the Nexus, painting a picture of a grand design set in motion eons ago. As they spoke, a sense of calm settled over the assembly, replacing fear with cautious hope. The moment was shattered by the blare of alarms. Unity's voice rang out once more. "Warning, rebel forces have breached the perimeter. They are advancing on the summit location." Admiral Frost turned to Gerald and Ren, her expression grim. "We need to evacuate the leaders. Our security forces will handle the rebels." "No," Gerald said, his voice firm. "We can help. Our abilities make us uniquely suited to this situation." Ren nodded in agreement. "Let us face this threat. We can end this without bloodshed." After a moment's hesitation, Admiral Frost gave a curt nod. "Very well, but be careful. We don't know the full extent of your capabilities." Gerald and Ren moved swiftly towards the exit, their movements fluid and synchronized. As they stepped outside, they were met with chaos. Rebel forces advanced from multiple directions, their weapons trained on the conference hall. Without a word, Gerald raised his hands, concentrating intensely. A shimmering force field sprang into existence, enveloping the entire building. Beside him, Ren's eyes narrowed in focus. The rebels closest to them suddenly found themselves struggling against an invisible force. Their movements slowed as if wading through thick syrup. The couple moved in perfect tandem, their mental link allowing them to coordinate their actions flawlessly. Gerald projected localized force fields, disarming rebels without harming them, while Ren manipulated gravity to immobilize groups of attackers. As they fought, their bodies continued to change. Gerald's force fields took on a crystalline quality, refracting light in mesmerizing patterns. Ren's control over gravity became more precise, allowing her to create pockets of altered space-time around individual rebels. Inside the conference hall, Dr. Kira monitored their vital signs, her face creased with worry. "Admiral," she called out, "their genetic transformation is accelerating exponentially. If this continues, they may evolve beyond compatibility with either human or Draconis biology." Before Admiral Frost could respond, Unity's voice filled the hall once more. "Alert! Massive energy surge detected from the approaching progenitor vessel. Estimated arrival time? 2 hours." Outside, oblivious to the new development, Gerald and Ren continued to push back the rebel forces. Their bodies began to emit a brilliant, pulsating light that grew more intense with each passing second. The rebels, awed and terrified by the display, began to retreat. As the last of the attackers fled, Gerald and Ren turned back towards the conference hall. The light emanating from their bodies had become almost blinding, forcing those nearby to shield their eyes. "What's happening to us?" Ren's thought echoed in Gerald's mind, a mix of wonder and apprehension coloring her mental voice. Before Gerald could respond, a new sensation washed over them both. It was as if the very fabric of space-time around them had begun to ripple and shift. In that moment, they both knew that they stood on the precipice of a transformation that would change everything. Inside the conference hall, world leaders watched in a mix of awe and trepidation as Gerald and Ren approached, their forms now barely discernible within the cocoon of light that enveloped them. The fate of two civilizations hung in the balance as the hybrid couple crossed the threshold, their metamorphosis reaching its critical peak just as the progenitor vessel prepared to make its long-awaited arrival. Gerald and Ren stood at the threshold of the conference hall, their bodies pulsating with an increasingly intense light. The assembled leaders shielded their eyes as the radiance grew to blinding levels. Suddenly, a brilliant flash erupted from the hybrid couple, engulfing the entire room in a dazzling white glow. As the light faded, gasps of astonishment filled the air. Gerald and Ren had undergone a startling metamorphosis. Their forms now embodied a perfect fusion of human and Draconis traits. Gerald's muscular frame rippled with scales that seamlessly blended into smooth human skin, while Ren's figure had taken on more human-like curves without sacrificing her Draconis strength. Their eyes, now glowing with an otherworldly energy, surveyed the room. Dr. Kira approached cautiously, her medical scanner whirring as she examined their new forms. "Fascinating," she murmured. "Your genetic structure has stabilized into a perfect hybrid form. It seems the transformation has a definitive endpoint." Before anyone could react further, alarms blared throughout the complex. Unity's voice cut through the chaos. "Alert! Rebel forces have breached the outer perimeter. They are advancing on the summit location." Gerald and Ren exchanged a glance, their mental link stronger than ever. Without a word, they moved in perfect synchronization towards the exit. Admiral Frost called after them, "Wait, it's too dangerous." But the hybrid couple was already outside, facing the oncoming rebel assault. Gerald raised his hands, and to his amazement, a shimmering energy field sprang into existence, enveloping the entire building. Beside him, Ren's eyes narrowed in concentration. The advancing rebels suddenly found themselves struggling against an invisible force. Their movements slowed as if wading through thick syrup. "Ren," Gerald's thought echoed in her mind, "are you doing that?" "Somehow, yes," she replied telepathically. "I can manipulate gravity itself." They moved in perfect tandem, their enhanced abilities complementing each other flawlessly. Gerald projected localized force fields, disarming rebels without harming them. Ren created pockets of altered gravity, immobilizing groups of attackers with ease. As the battle raged, their bodies continued to adapt. Gerald's energy barriers took on a crystalline quality, refracting light in mesmerizing patterns. Ren's control over gravity became more precise, allowing her to create intricate gravitational mazes that trapped and disoriented the rebels. Inside the conference hall, Dr. Kira monitored their vital signs on a holographic display. "Admiral," she reported, "their power output is off the charts. They're neutralizing the entire rebel force without a single casualty." Admiral Frost watched the scene unfold with a mix of awe and concern. "And the progenitor vessel?" As if on cue, Unity's voice filled the room. "Alert! The progenitor vessel and its fleet have entered the solar system, detecting massive energy signature from the lead ship." Outside, oblivious to this new development, Gerald and Ren continued to push back the rebel forces. Their bodies emitted a brilliant, pulsating light that grew more intense with each passing second. The rebels, awed and terrified by the display, began to retreat. As the last of the attackers fled, Gerald and Ren turned back towards the conference hall. The light emanating from their bodies had become almost blinding, forcing those nearby to shield their eyes. Suddenly, both of them froze, their faces etched with concentration. "Admiral," Gerald called out, his voice carrying a new resonance. "We're picking up a telepathic signal from the progenitor ship." Admiral Frost hesitated, weighing the potential risks. Finally, she nodded. "Make contact, but be careful. We don't know their intentions." Gerald and Ren clasped hands, focusing their combined mental energies. Their minds reached out across the vast distances of space, seeking the source of the signal. In an instant, they connected with a vast alien intelligence aboard the lead progenitor ship. The contact was overwhelming. Their minds flooded with fragments of information and vivid images. They glimpsed flashes of a grand plan, eons in the making. A vision of humans and Draconis elevated to a new stage of evolution, prepared for a greater role in the galaxy. But before they could fully comprehend the message, the connection severed abruptly. Gerald and Ren collapsed to the ground, their bodies once again pulsing with energy. As Dr. Kira and her team rushed to stabilize them, alarms blared throughout the complex. Unity's voice rang out. "Warning! Progenitor fleet has taken positions around the planet. Formation suggests a containment protocol." Admiral Frost turned to the assembled leaders, her face grim. "We need to make a decision. Do we attempt communication or prepare our defenses?" As debate erupted among the delegates, Gerald and Ren slowly regained consciousness. They looked at each other, understanding passing between them without words. Whatever came next, they would face it together, as the first of a new species, standing at the crossroads of history. The fate of two civilizations hung in the balance as the progenitor ships loomed overhead, their intentions still unknown. Gerald and Ren rose to their feet, their hybrid forms a testament to the potential of unity between humans and Draconis. As they prepared to address the summit, they knew that their next actions would shape the future of both species for generations to come. They stepped forward, ready to address the summit and share their newfound insights. Suddenly, a wave of dizziness swept over them. Gerald stumbled, catching himself on a nearby chair. Ren's knees buckled, and she sank to the floor. Their vision blurred as the room spun around them. "Get them to the medical bay now!" Admiral Frost's voice cut through the haze. Gerald felt strong hands lifting him onto a stretcher. He tried to reach out for Ren, but his limbs felt heavy and unresponsive. The last thing he saw before losing consciousness was Dr. Kira's concerned face hovering above him. When Gerald came to, he found himself lying on a medical bed, the soft hum of monitoring equipment filling the air. He turned his head to see Ren on an adjacent bed, her eyes fluttering open. Their bodies still emitted a faint, pulsating glow, a reminder of their recent transformation. Dr. Kira approached, her face etched with concern. "How are you feeling?" she asked, checking their vital signs on a holographic display. Before either could respond, the room shook violently. Alarms blared as Unity's voice echoed through the complex. "Alert! Progenitor fleet initiating planet-wide scan. Massive energy beams detected." Gerald and Ren sat up, their bodies protesting the sudden movement. Through the medical bay's window, They saw brilliant beams of light sweeping across the sky, casting an eerie glow over the landscape. "We need to get to the command center," Wren said, swinging her legs off the bed. Dr. Kira moved to block their path. "You're not stable yet. Your genetic structure is still in flux." "We don't have time for this," Gerald insisted, standing up despite the doctor's protest. "Our people need us." They made their way to the summit's command center, their enhanced physiology allowing them to recover quickly. As they entered, they found Admiral Frost coordinating emergency responses with world leaders. A massive holographic display dominated the room, showing the progenitor fleet arranged in a complex, symmetrical pattern around the planet. "The scans are causing widespread disruption," a human technician reported. "Communications and power systems are failing across the globe." Unity's voice cut in. "Analysis complete. Detecting power buildup at the center of the fleet formation. High probability of imminent large-scale event." Gerald and Wren exchanged a glance, drawing on their recent mental contact with the progenitors. "We have an idea," Gerald said, stepping forward. "We can use our hybrid abilities to create a resonance field, allowing clear communication with the fleet." Admiral Frost's eyes narrowed. "And how exactly do you propose to do that?" "By interfacing directly with the planet's defense grid," Wren explained. "Our hybrid DNA should bridge the gap between our technology and theirs." After a moment's hesitation, Admiral Frost nodded. "At this point, we have few options left. Make it happen." They were quickly escorted to the planet's primary defense control center, a vast underground facility humming with activity. Human and Draconis engineers worked side by side, frantically trying to restore systems disrupted by the progenitor scans. Gerald and Wren were led to a central platform surrounded by holographic interfaces. As they stepped onto it, nanoscale connectors emerged, linking their bodies directly to the defense grid. The moment the connection was established, they felt a surge of power unlike anything they had experienced before. The defense grid came to life, pulsing with energy that matched the rhythm of their bioluminescence. Gerald gritted his teeth, focusing his mind on shaping the energy. Beside him, Wren's face was a mask of concentration. Slowly, a massive energy dome began to form around the planet, not as a shield, but as a communication array. The effort was immense. Gerald felt as if every cell in his body was on fire. Sweat beaded on Wren's forehead as she pushed her abilities to their limit. As they channeled the colossal energies, vivid visions flashed through their minds. Glimpses of the progenitor's history, a civilization so advanced it defied comprehension. Suddenly, the progenitor fleet responded. The massive ships began to descend through the atmosphere, their colossal forms breaking through the cloud cover. As they approached, it became clear that these weren't mere vessels, but entire ecosystems encased in technological shells. The lead ship, a structure that dwarfed the largest Draconis cities, came to rest above the capital. It opened like a blooming flower, revealing a central chamber bathed in blinding light. From this radiance, a figure emerged. Neither human nor Draconis, but a perfect synthesis of both. A telepathic voice resonated in Gerald and Wren's minds. "I am the architect," it said. "Your hybridization was set in motion eons ago, a grand experiment to create beings capable of inheriting our legacy." As the architect's words echoed across the planet, chaos erupted. Riots broke out in several cities as factions clashed over the implications of this revelation. The command center erupted into frantic activity as reports of unrest poured in from around the globe. Amidst the turmoil, the architect extended an invitation to Gerald and Wren. "Come aboard," the telepathic voice urged. "Learn the full truth of your origins and your potential future." Gerald and Wren, still connected to the defense grid, found themselves at a crossroads. The choice before them was monumental. Accept the architect's offer and potentially abandon their people, or refuse and risk losing the chance to unlock their full potential. As they grappled with the decision, Unity's voice cut through their thoughts. "Alert! Rebel forces have seized control of orbital defense platforms. Weapons charging, multiple targets acquired." The situation had escalated into a three-way standoff. The progenitor fleet loomed above, the rebels aimed their stolen weapons, and the combined human Draconis forces scrambled to respond. Gerald and Wren realized their next move would shape the course of history for both their species and potentially the entire galaxy. With the weight of two civilizations on their shoulders, they prepared to make their choice. The defense grid hummed around them, awaiting their command. The fate of their world hung in the balance as the progenitor ships cast their imposing shadows over the cities below. Gerald and Wren exchanged a meaningful glance, their minds reaching the same conclusion simultaneously. They would accept the architect's invitation, but not at the cost of abandoning their people. "We'll go," Gerald said, his voice carrying a new resonance that filled the command center. "But we're not severing our connection to the defense grid." Wren nodded, her eyes glowing with dedication. "We can create an energy tether to maintain our link while we ascend to the architect's ship." Admiral Frost's brow furrowed. "Are you certain that's possible?" "We have to try," Wren replied, her body already beginning to pulse with energy. As Gerald and Wren focused their newfound abilities, tendrils of light began to coalesce around them. The energy formed a brilliant cord, anchoring them to the Defense Control Center, even as they prepared to leave. "Good luck," Admiral Frost said, her voice tight with concern. "And be careful." With a shared nod of acknowledgement, Gerald and Wren began to rise from the platform. Their bodies emitted an intense, pulsating glow that grew brighter as they ascended through the facility's levels and emerged into the open air. The sight of two luminous figures rising towards the colossal progenitor ship sent waves of awe and fear through the watching crowds. Some fell to their knees in reverence, while others pointed and shouted in alarm. As Gerald and Wren approached the architect's vessel, its surface seemed to ripple and shift. A portal materialized, beckoning them inside. They passed through the threshold, leaving the familiar world behind. The interior of the ship defied their expectations. Instead of metal corridors or advanced technology, they found themselves in a vast, ever-changing landscape. Rolling hills transformed into crystalline forests, then into swirling vortexes of energy, all responding to their presence. "Welcome," the architect's telepathic voice resonated in their minds. "Follow the path that forms before you." As they walked, the environment solidified into a long corridor leading to a central chamber. Here they encountered a massive, pulsating crystal structure that seemed to be the heart of the ship. The architect's form coalesced before them, a perfect blend of human and draconis features. "This crystal," it explained, gesturing to the structure, "is the key to unlocking the full potential of your hybrid DNA." Before Gerald or Wren could respond, their energy tether pulsed with an urgent message. Dr. Kira's voice came through, tinged with worry. "We've discovered cellular instability in many hybrid individuals. The genetic changes are causing dangerous mutations. We need a solution, fast." The architect's expression remained serene. "The crystal can provide that solution. Its energy, channeled through you, can stabilize the hybrid population. But the process will require an enormous amount of power and may prove fatal for you both." Gerald and Wren barely had time to process this information when alarms blared through their connection to the defense grid. The rebel forces had opened fire on the progenitor fleet, their stolen orbital platforms unleashing devastating energy beams. The ship around them shuddered, its dreamlike interior flickering like a faulty hologram. The architect's form wavered, its voice strained. "We must act now, or all will be lost." Without hesitation, Gerald and Wren moved to opposite sides of the crystal. They placed their hands on its surface, feeling the immense power thrumming beneath. "Are you ready?" Gerald asked, looking across at Wren. She nodded, her eyes meeting his. Together, they focused their minds, opening themselves to the crystal's energy. The power surged through them, more intense than anything they had experienced before. Their bodies began to glow, then to shimmer as if their very atoms were coming apart. The energy flowed through their tether, into the planet's defense grid, and out across the globe. Hybrid individuals everywhere felt a strange sensation wash over them, as if their bodies were being rewritten at the cellular level. In orbit, the rebel-controlled platforms suddenly went dark, their weapon systems overloaded by the surge of energy. The human Draconis strike team, composed of individuals with emerging hybrid traits, seized this opportunity. They stormed the stations, quickly overwhelming the confused rebel forces. Back on the architect's ship, Gerald and Wren felt their consciousness expanding. Their physical forms had dissolved into pure energy, intermingling with the power of the crystal. For a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, they existed as beings of pure thought and energy. Then slowly, they began to coalesce once more. Their bodies reformed, but they were changed. No longer recognizably human or draconis, they had become something entirely new, the first true hybrids of their kind. As the stabilizing wave completed its journey around the planet, the architect addressed them once more. You have succeeded beyond our expectations, but your journey is far from complete. As the first of your kind, you must now guide both humans and draconis through this transition. Gerald and Wren, still adjusting to their new forms, nodded in understanding. They could feel the weight of this responsibility settling upon them. The progenitor fleet will remain in orbit, the architect continued. We will offer assistance when needed, but the path forward must be your own. With those words, Gerald and Wren found themselves descending from the ship, their new bodies glowing with an inner light. As they touched down in the center of the capital city, a hush fell over the gathered crowd of humans and draconis. Admiral Frost pushed through the throng, her eyes wide with a mix of awe and uncertainty as she took in their transformed appearance. Gerald? Wren? Is that really you? Gerald's voice, when he spoke, carried new harmonics that seemed to resonate with the very air around them. It's us, Admiral. We've changed, but we're still here to help. Wren added, her voice equally transformed. We have much to explain and even more to learn, but we're ready to face whatever comes next. As news of their return spread across the planet and to Earth, Gerald and Wren knew that the real challenges were just beginning. They would need to navigate the complex political landscape, mediate between factions, and help both species understand the profound changes they were undergoing. The future stretched before them, filled with uncertainty but also with unprecedented potential. As the first of a new species, they stood ready to lead humanity and the draconis into a new era of shared evolution and discovery. As Gerald and Wren stood before the gathered crowd, their new forms radiating an otherworldly glow, they could sense the mix of awe, fear, and hope emanating from the assembled humans and draconis. The weight of their responsibility settled upon them, a tangible pressure that seemed to bend the very air around their transformed bodies. Before they could address the crowd, Dr. Kira pushed her way through, her face etched with concern. Gerald, Wren, we have a situation, she said, her voice low and urgent. The hybridization process, it's not affecting everyone equally. Gerald and Wren exchanged glances, their new senses allowing them to communicate volumes in that single look. What do you mean, Dr. Kira? Wren asked, her voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate with the molecular structure of the air itself. Dr. Kira pulled out a data pad, her fingers flying across its surface. We're seeing a wide range of outcomes. Most of the population has stabilized, but a small percentage. She paused, looking up at them with a mix of excitement and trepidation. We're calling them outliers. Their abilities far surpass what we anticipated, but they're struggling to control them. As if on cue, a commotion erupted at the edge of the crowd. A young hybrid, his skin crackling with uncontrolled energy, stumbled forward. His eyes were wide with panic as arcs of electricity leapt from his fingertips, scorching the ground around him. Gerald reacted instinctively. He raised his hand, and a shimmering field of energy enveloped the panicking hybrid. The electricity dissipated harmlessly against the barrier, and the young man collapsed to his knees, relief washing over his face. Wren turned to Admiral Frost, who had been watching the scene unfold with a mixture of concern and calculation. Admiral, we need to establish a facility to study and assist these outliers. It's crucial for the stability of our society. Frost nodded, her military mind already formulating plans. Agreed. I'll coordinate with the Planetary Defense Forces to secure a suitable location. Dr. Kira, I want you to lead this research effort. Dr. Kira's eyes lit up at the prospect. Of course, Admiral. I'll assemble a team of the best human and draconis scientists immediately. Over the next few weeks, the Harmony Institute took shape. Located on a sprawling campus outside the capital city, it quickly became a hub of activity. Gerald and Wren split their time between their leadership duties and participating in experiments at the Institute, their unique status as the first true hybrids making them invaluable to the research. One morning, as they prepared for another round of tests, an alarm blared through the Institute's communication system. Dr. Kira's voice, tense and urgent, filled the room. Gerald, Wren, we have a situation in Lab 7. And Outlier's abilities have evolved. They rushed to the lab, their enhanced speed allowing them to cover the distance in seconds. Inside, they found chaos. A young woman hovered in the center of the room, her body surrounded by a swirling vortex of energy. Equipment and furniture orbited around her, caught in the maelstrom of her uncontrolled power. Sarai, Gerald called out, recognizing the outlier. Focus on my voice. You can control this. Sarai's eyes, glowing with an intense inner light, locked onto Gerald. I can't, she gasped. It's too much. I can see everything. Wren stepped forward, her own energy field pulsing in response to Sarai's. Let us help you, she said, extending her hand. Together we can channel this power. As Gerald and Wren approached Sarai, they felt their own abilities responding, resonating with the outlier's energy. They reached out, not with their hands but with their minds, creating a web of energy that enveloped Sarai. For a moment, the three of them were suspended in a bubble of pure power. Gerald and Wren could feel the vast potential coursing through Sarai, threatening to tear her apart. With gentle guidance, they helped her shape the energy, molding it into controllable forms. Slowly, the vortex began to dissipate. The orbiting object settled back to the ground, and Sarai's feet touched the floor. Her eyes, still glowing, but now with a controlled intensity, widened in amazement. How did you do that? She asked, her voice filled with wonder. Gerald smiled, the expression transforming his altered features. We didn't do it, Sarai. You did. We just showed you the way. As they helped Sarai to a nearby chair, Dr. Kira approached, her datapad clutched tightly in her hands. This is remarkable, she said, her voice filled with excitement. The readings we got from this interaction, they're going to revolutionize our understanding of hybrid physiology. Wren nodded, her mind already racing with the implications. We need to develop a training program, she said, not just for the outliers, but for all hybrids. Everyone needs to learn to control and harness their abilities. Gerald agreed, but a frown creased his brow. We also need to address the situation on Earth, he said. The reports we've been receiving, the unrest is growing. They're demanding answers, and we owe them an explanation. Before Wren could respond, Admiral Frost's voice came through their communication devices. Gerald, Wren, we have a problem. A group of outliers has broken away from the Institute. They've seized control of New Atlantis City and erected some kind of energy barrier around it. Their leader? He's calling himself Zix. He's declaring the formation of a superior hybrid nation. The news hit them like a physical blow. They had known there would be challenges, but this was beyond anything they had anticipated. As they exchanged worried glances, they knew their plans for Earth would have to wait. A new crisis was unfolding, one that threatened to tear apart the fragile peace they had worked so hard to build. Gerald's voice when he spoke carried the weight of their new responsibility. Admiral, prepare a briefing. We need to know everything about this Zix and his followers. It's time to put our abilities to the test. As they left the lab, the air around them hummed with tension. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with dangers they were only beginning to understand. But as Gerald and Wren stepped into the sunlight, their transformed bodies glowing with inner power, they knew one thing for certain. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. Gerald and Wren exchanged a determined look as they prepared to confront the new threat. The air crackled with tension as they approached the energy barrier surrounding New Atlantis City. The shimmering field pulsed with an otherworldly light, a testament to the power of the outliers who had seized control. As they neared the barrier, Gerald reached out with his enhanced senses, probing for weaknesses. Wren's gravity manipulation abilities flickered to life, creating a localized field that allowed them to pass through the energy barrier unharmed. Inside the city, chaos reigned. Buildings warped and twisted, their structures altered by the unchecked abilities of the rebel outliers. In the distance, a towering figure stood atop a partially transformed skyscraper, his form radiating raw power. "That must be Zix," Gerald said, his voice carrying an undertone of concern. Wren nodded, her eyes narrowing as she assessed the situation. "We need to get closer without alerting him to our presence." They moved through the city, their hybrid forms allowing them to blend seamlessly with the altered environment. As they approached Zix's stronghold, they witnessed the fear and uncertainty etched on the faces of the city's inhabitants, both human and draconous. Suddenly, a voice boomed across the cityscape. "Ah, the so-called leaders of our kind have finally arrived." Zix's words dripped with disdain. "Come, let us see if you are truly worthy of your status." Gerald and Wren found themselves lifted into the air, pulled towards Zix by an invisible force. They landed on the roof of the transformed skyscraper, face to face with the rebel leader. Zix's appearance was a shock. His body seemed to be in constant flux, energy rippling across his skin in waves of color. His eyes glowed with an intense inner light, reflecting the immense power he had harnessed. "Welcome," Zix said, his voice resonating with hardly restrained energy. "I've been eager to test the limits of your abilities. Shall we begin?" Before Gerald or Wren could respond, Zix raised his hands and a surge of energy engulfed them. They felt their powers amplifying, growing beyond anything they had experienced before. Gerald's body began to glow, his energy manipulation abilities expanding exponentially. He felt the fabric of space bending around him, portals flickering in and out of existence at the edges of his perception. Wren gasped as her control over gravity intensified. The very air around her seemed to warp, creating pockets of altered gravity that rippled outward. Zix laughed, a sound that sent shivers through the transformed cityscape. "Yes, feel the true potential of our kind. This is the power that will elevate us above all others." But as the energy continued to flow, Gerald and Wren realized the danger. The amplification was spiraling out of control, threatening to tear them apart at the molecular level. "Wren," Gerald called out, his voice strained, "we need to redirect this energy." Understanding flashed between them. They began to channel the excess power, not into themselves, but into the city around them. The crumbling infrastructure began to repair itself, twisted buildings straightening and reinforcing. Zix's expression changed from triumph to confusion, then to anger. "What are you doing? Stop this at once." But it was too late. The amplification process had created a feedback loop, trapping all three hybrids in a power struggle that threatened to spiral out of control. As the city shuddered under the conflicting energies, a group of outliers led by a young woman named Lyra approached. Her eyes, capable of sensing emotional states, widened as she took in the scene. "This isn't right," Lyra called out to her fellow outliers. "Look at what they're doing. They're trying to help, not destroy." The rebel outliers watched in awe as Gerald and Wren's actions began to transform the city. The energy barrier, once a tool of isolation, started to shift and change, becoming a protective shield that allowed free passage. Zix, realizing he was losing control, made a desperate attempt to reassert his dominance. He tried to redirect the amplified energy back at Gerald and Wren, but the surge proved too much for his own body to handle. As Zix's form began to destabilize, Gerald and Wren made a split-second decision. Instead of allowing him to be destroyed by his own powers, they created a containment field around him. "Lyra," Wren called out, her voice strained with effort. "We need your help." Lyra hesitated for a moment, then stepped forward. She placed her hands on the containment field, her ability to sense emotions allowing her to connect with Zix on a deeper level. Other moderate outliers joined in, forming a circle around Zix, Gerald, and Wren. They lent their unique abilities to the effort, creating a cooperative display of hybrid potential that began to shift the atmosphere in the city. As the energy levels finally started to stabilize, Gerald and Wren carefully released the containment field. Zix fell to his knees, his powers diminished, his grand vision of a superior hybrid nation crumbling around him. The once charismatic leader looked up at Gerald and Wren, his eyes filled with a mix of fear and confusion. What have you done to me?" Gerald knelt beside Zix, his voice firm but compassionate. We showed you the true potential of our abilities, Zix, not in isolation, but in cooperation. Ren addressed the gathered hybrids, humans and Draconis. This is the power we hold when we work together. Not to dominate, but to build, to heal, to protect. As the sun began to set over the transformed New Atlantis City, Gerald and Ren knew that this event had fundamentally altered the course of hybrid integration. The challenges they had faced and overcome had provided valuable insights into the true potential and risks of their abilities. But as they looked out over the city, they also knew that their work was far from finished. The events of this day had set the stage for the next phase of their journey as leaders of a new hybrid civilization, and the path ahead was filled with both promise and uncertainty. Uncertainty. As the dust settled over New Atlantis City, Gerald and Ren found themselves at the center of a rapidly evolving situation. The events of the past few days had sent shockwaves through the hybrid community, and the ripples were spreading far beyond their immediate sphere of influence. Barely a week after the confrontation with Six, Gerald and Ren stood on the balcony of the Harmony Institute, overlooking the city they had helped save. The once chaotic streets were now filled with a mix of humans, Draconis, and hybrids working together to rebuild. It's remarkable how quickly things can change, Ren mused, her eyes scanning the horizon. Gerald nodded, his enhanced senses picking up the myriad sounds and scents of the city below. We've made progress, but there's still so much to do. Before Ren could respond, a brilliant flash of light erupted in the sky above them. A vessel unlike anything they had ever seen descended from the heavens, its form shifting and shimmering as if it were made of liquid starlight. As the vessel touched down in the plaza before the Institute, a hush fell over the gathered crowd. The ship's surface rippled and a figure emerged, a being of such ethereal beauty that it took Gerald and Ren's breath away. The newcomer, seamlessly blending human and Draconis features, approached with a grace that seemed almost supernatural. Her eyes, deep pools of cosmic wisdom, locked onto Gerald and Ren. Greetings, Gerald and Empress Ren, the being spoke, her voice a melodious harmony. I am Zilia, emissary of the architect. We have been watching your progress with great interest. Gerald and Ren exchanged a look of surprise. The architect, the name sent a shiver of recognition through them both. The progenitor race, Ren breathed, her eyes widening. Zilia nodded, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Indeed, your handling of the recent crisis has exceeded our expectations. However, I come bearing news of both opportunity and challenge. As Zilia explained the impending ascension heat, Gerald felt a mix of anticipation and concern. He glanced at Ren, noting the subtle changes already beginning to manifest, her skin taking on a soft glow, her eyes shimmering with an inner fire. This ascension heat, Gerald began, his voice tight with tension. How do we prepare? Zilia's expression turned serious. You must undergo a series of rituals and treatments to attune your bodies to each other at a deeper level. Come, there is much to do and little time. The emissary led them to a hidden entrance beneath the Institute, revealing a vast underground complex that hummed with advanced biotechnology. As they descended into the heart of the facility, Gerald and Ren marveled at the seamless blend of organic and mechanical engineering. This chamber will initiate the attunement process, Zilia explained, gesturing to a pulsating, cocoon-like structure. Be warned, the experience will be intense. As Gerald and Ren stepped into the chamber, they felt an immediate surge of energy coursing through their bodies. Gerald gasped as he felt his Draconis features becoming more pronounced, scales rippling across his skin, his senses sharpening to an almost painful degree. Beside him, Ren underwent her own transformation. Her human characteristics became more defined, her form shifting to find a perfect balance between her dual natures. The process lasted for hours, pushing them to the limits of their endurance. Throughout it all, Gerald and Ren clung to each other, their bond deepening with each passing moment. When they finally emerged from the chamber, they felt fundamentally changed. Gerald flexed his hand, watching as iridescent scales shimmered beneath his skin. Ren took a deep breath, marveling at the new sensations coursing through her body. Celia approached them, her expression one of approval. "You have done well. The attunement is complete, but your greatest challenge still lies ahead." As they made their way back to the surface, Xylia briefed them on the preparations being made across the hybrid society. Dr. Kira and her team were working tirelessly to develop countermeasures, while Admiral Frost implemented new security protocols. "The stability of your society rests on your ability to manage this ascension heat," Xylia warned as they reached the Institute's main hall. "But remember, it is also an opportunity for greater unity between humans and Draconis." With a final word of encouragement, Xylia prepared to depart. Before leaving, she presented them with a small, crystalline device. "This will allow you to communicate with the architect in times of great need. Use it wisely, for each communication draws the attention of forces beyond your comprehension." As Xylia's ship ascended into the sky, Gerald and Ren stood hand in hand, watching it disappear into the vastness of space. The weight of responsibility settled heavily upon them, but they drew strength from each other's presence. "Whatever comes next," Ren said softly, her eyes meeting Gerald's, "we face it together." Gerald nodded, feeling the first stirrings of Ren's impending ascension heat. The air around her seemed to shimmer, carrying the faint scent of an otherworldly fragrance. He knew that the true test of their bond and their leadership was about to begin. As they turned to face the expectant crowd gathered before the Institute, Gerald and Ren steeled themselves for the challenges ahead. The fate of two species hung in the balance, and they were the linchpin upon which everything rested. As Gerald and Ren turned to face the expectant crowd, a sudden wave of heat washed over them. Ren gasped, her body trembling as an intense sensation coursed through her veins. Gerald steadied her, concern etching his features. "It's starting," Ren whispered, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and anticipation. The air around Ren shimmered, carrying a potent, otherworldly scent. Gerald felt his own body responding, his Draconis traits becoming more pronounced. Scales rippled beneath his skin, and his senses sharpened to an almost painful degree. As they made their way back into the Harmony Institute, Gerald noticed the effect spreading beyond Ren. Hybrids in the crowd began to shift restlessly, their eyes drawn to Ren with an almost magnetic pull. Those with stronger Draconis traits seemed particularly affected, their bodies tensing as if ready to spring into action. Inside the Institute, Dr. Kira rushed to meet them, her face pale with worry. "Empress Gerald, we have a situation," she said, leading them to a holographic display. "The pheromones from the ascension heat are causing rapid changes in the hybrid population. Look." The display showed real-time data from across the planet. Clusters of red dots indicated areas of heightened hybrid activity and physiological changes. Gerald watched in astonishment as the red spread like wildfire across the map. "Some hybrids are experiencing spontaneous physical transformations," Dr. Kira explained, pulling up medical scans. "Their bodies are shifting to more closely resemble your ideal blend of human and Draconis traits." Before Gerald could respond, Admiral Frost's hologram flickered to life. "We have a problem," he reported, his voice tense. "The neutralizing agent is only partially effective, and our supplies are depleting rapidly. I've implemented a rationing system, prioritizing key personnel, but it won't be enough." Gerald exchanged a glance with Ren, who was visibly struggling to control the waves of energy emanating from her body. He knew they had to act fast. "Dr. Kira, continue your research. Try to find a way to stabilize the affected hybrids," Gerald ordered. "Admiral Frost, maintain order as best you can. Ren and I will address this at the source." Drawing on the knowledge imparted by Xylia, Gerald led Ren to a private chamber deep within the Institute. The room hummed with progenitor technology, its walls lined with pulsating biomechanical devices. "We need to channel the energy of the ascension heat," Gerald explained, his voice low and intense. "It's the only way to stabilize the situation." Ren nodded, her eyes locked on Gerald's. As they began the intimate process Xylia had described, their bodies responded in ways they couldn't have anticipated. A soft, pulsating glow emanated from their skin, intensifying with each moment of connection. Outside the chamber, Dr. Kira monitored their vital signs with growing amazement. The energy field generated by Gerald and Ren's union was having a stabilizing effect on the immediate area. Hybrids in the vicinity of the Institute reported a calming of their heightened states and a slowing of their accelerated changes. As Gerald and Ren continued their deeply personal ritual, they remained unaware of the broader impact of their actions. The stabilizing energy field began to spread beyond the Institute, touching hybrids across the city and then beyond. In the hybrid settlements surrounding the capital, chaos gave way to an unexpected calm. Individuals who had been in the throes of rapid, uncontrolled transformation found their changes slowing to a manageable rate. The frenzied atmosphere that had gripped the population began to dissipate. However, not everyone welcomed this stabilizing effect. In a hidden base on the outskirts of the city, Zix paced restlessly, his weakened body still bearing the scars of his previous defeat. As reports of the calming effect reached him, his eyes narrowed with a mixture of anger and opportunity. "This is our chance," he hissed to his gathered followers. "While they're distracted, we can harness the power of the ascension heat for ourselves. Prepare for an assault on the capital." As Zix's forces mobilized, Gerald and Ren remained oblivious to the approaching threat. Their minds and bodies were fully engaged in the ascension heat ritual, their connection deepening with each passing moment. Suddenly, the crystalline device gifted by Zilia pulsed with an urgent light. The architect's voice filled their minds, cutting through the haze of their intimate connection. "Gerald, Ren, you must act quickly." The architect's voice resonated with urgency. "The energy you're generating has created a beacon detectable across vast distances of space. Other species have taken notice. You must complete the ritual to unlock your full potential. Only then can you face what's coming." The warning jolted Gerald and Ren into a new state of awareness. They redoubled their efforts, their bodies glowing more intensely as they channeled the energy of the ascension heat. As they neared the climax of the ritual, the energy field around them expanded rapidly. It enveloped the entire capital city in a matter of moments, then continued to spread across the planet. Every hybrid touched by this field felt a sudden, profound connection to their fellow hybrids. In that moment, a collective consciousness bloomed among the hybrid population. Individual differences melted away, replaced by a sense of unity and shared purpose that transcended personal boundaries. This sudden unity had an immediate impact on Zix and his approaching forces. The rebel leader found his control over his loyalists evaporating as they were drawn into the collective hybrid consciousness. Zix himself staggered, overwhelmed by the sudden clarity that washed over him. As Gerald and Ren emerged from their private chamber, their bodies permanently altered by the completed ascension heat ritual, they faced a changed world. The hybrid population looked to them with newfound understanding and purpose. But even as this internal conflict dedication, a new challenge loomed. On the edges of the solar system, the first of the alien species drawn by the ascension heat's energy beacon appeared. Their massive ships, unlike anything seen before, approached with unknown intentions. Gerald and Ren stood hand in hand, their bodies still glowing with residual energy from the ritual. They gazed at the holographic display showing the approaching alien fleet, acutely aware that the next phase of their journey was about to begin. The fate of their newly unified species hung in the balance as they prepared to face this unprecedented extraterrestrial encounter. Challenge. The massive alien ships loomed on the horizon, their bioorganic forms pulsing with an otherworldly energy that sent shivers down Gerald's spine. As the couple emerged from their chambers, the soft glow emanating from their bodies caught the attention of everyone in the vicinity. Admiral Frost approached, his face a mask of concern. "Your Majesties," he said, bowing slightly, "we have an urgent situation. The alien vessels have entered the outer reaches of our solar system." Gerald nodded, his mind already processing the information at an unprecedented speed. "Show us what we're dealing with, Admiral." They made their way to the command center, where a holographic display flickered to life. The alien ships moved with impossible grace, defying the laws of physics as they navigated through space. Dr. Kira burst into the room, her eyes wide with excitement and fear. "Gerald, Ren, "You need to see this," she said, pulling up a series of data streams on a nearby screen. "The aliens' technology, it's unlike anything we've ever encountered. Their ships are bioorganic, capable of adapting and evolving in real time." Wren leaned in, her enhanced senses allowing her to process the complex data with ease. "We need to prepare our people," she said, turning to Gerald. "Whatever these aliens are, they're far beyond our current capabilities." Gerald agreed, feeling the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. "Convene an emergency meeting with our key leaders. We need to strategize for first contact." As they discussed their options, reports began flooding in from across the planet. Hybrid individuals were manifesting new abilities, each unique but all stemming from the perfect balance achieved by Gerald and Wren during the Ascension Heat ritual. "This could be our advantage," Gerald mused, watching footage of a hybrid manipulating energy fields with a mere thought. Suddenly, the crystalline device gifted by Zelia pulsed with light. A holographic image of the architect materialized before them, its ancient visage filled with urgency. "Gerald, Wren," the architect's voice resonated in their minds. "The approaching aliens are known as the Cynthus. They have achieved perfect symbiosis between organic life and technology. But be warned, they assimilate other species, incorporating useful traits into their collective." The information sent a chill through the room. Gerald and Wren exchanged a look, their thoughts perfectly in sync. "We need to prepare our people," Wren said, her voice firm, "not just for defense, but to understand and control these new abilities." Gerald nodded, already formulating a plan. "We'll establish training centers in major cities. Those with better control can teach others." As they set their plans in motion, an unexpected figure approached. Zix, the former rebel leader, stood before them, his posture humble but his eyes burning with intensity. "I want to help," he said, his voice low. "My experience with power amplification, I believe it could be valuable in training our people." Gerald and Wren hesitated, memories of past conflicts flashing through their minds. But in the face of this new threat, they knew they needed every advantage. "Very well," Gerald said after a moment, "but you'll be under close supervision." As preparations continued, Admiral Frost oversaw the retrofitting of their fleet with experimental progenitor-based technology. The Nexus, once a symbol of Gerald and Wren's journey across the stars, was recommissioned and upgraded. Gerald and Wren stepped aboard the Nexus, marveling at how the ship's systems now seemed to respond to their very thoughts. It had become an extension of their enhanced physiology, a perfect blend of human and Draconis technology. As the Nexus rose from the planet's surface, its hull shimmering with ethereal energy, Gerald and Wren stood at the helm. The assembled defense fleet fell into formation around them, a testament to the unity of their hybrid society. "The first Cynthus vessel has entered the system." Admiral Frost's voice came through the comm system. Gerald took a deep breath, feeling Wren's presence beside him, their energies intertwined. As the alien ship appeared on their sensors, Gerald knew that everything they had experienced, every trial, every transformation, had led to this moment. "All ships, prepare for first contact," he commanded, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "Let's show these Cynthus what our hybrid society is capable of." The Nexus surged forward, leading the fleet towards their uncertain future. As they approached the massive Cynthus vessel, Gerald and Wren stood united, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead in their ever-evolving journey. The Nexus surged forward, leading the fleet towards their uncertain future. As they approached the massive Cynthus vessel, Gerald and Wren stood united, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead in their ever-evolving journey. As the distance closed, the true scale of the Cynthus fleet became apparent. The alien vessels were colossal bioorganic structures that dwarfed even the largest human Draconis ships. Their surfaces pulsed with an otherworldly energy, shifting and reconfiguring in ways that defied conventional physics. Gerald felt the Nexus respond to his thoughts, the ship's systems now an extension of his enhanced physiology. Beside him, Wren's presence was a steady anchor, their energies intertwined in perfect harmony. "Admiral Frost," Gerald called through the comm system, "initiate first contact protocols." "Understood, Your Majesty," Frost's voice crackled back. Transmitting now. Moments passed in tense silence as they awaited a response. Suddenly, the lead Cynthus vessel erupted with activity. Thousands of smaller, pod-like structures poured from its hull, racing towards the hybrid fleet. "Incoming!" Wren shouted, her enhanced senses picking up the rapid approach of the alien pods. Dr. Kira's voice cut through the chaos. "Gerald Wren, those aren't simple probes. They're highly adaptive units capable of interfacing with and potentially assimilating other technologies. You need to act now." Without hesitation, Gerald and Wren channeled their newly enhanced abilities through the Nexus. Energy coursed through their bodies, amplified by the ship's systems. A shimmering field expanded outward, enveloping the entire hybrid fleet in a protective barrier. The Cynthus pods slammed into the energy field. Their advance halted mere meters from the hybrid ships. The barrier pulsed and rippled under the impact, but held firm. "It worked," Wren breathed, her eyes wide with amazement. Their relief was short-lived. The Cynthus pods, momentarily stunned, began to emit complex series of energy pulses. Gerald winced as he felt the assault on his consciousness. "They're trying to interface directly with our minds," he growled through gritted teeth. Wren grabbed his hand, her face set with willpower. "Then let's show them what our minds can do." Together, they initiated a risky maneuver. Using the Nexus's communication array, they began to broadcast the collective consciousness of the hybrid species. The mental link spread rapidly, connecting all hybrid individuals in the fleet and on the planet below. The surge of unified thought crashed against the Cynthus probe like a tidal wave. Several pods malfunctioned, their bioorganic structures overwhelmed by the complex amalgamation of human and draconis thought patterns. Admiral Frost's voice rang out. "All ships, open fire on the disoriented pods." The hybrid fleet unleashed a devastating barrage of energy blasts. Progenitor-enhanced weapons tore through the confused Cynthus units, vaporizing many and forcing others to retreat. However, the main Cynthus fleet was quick to adapt. Their massive ships began to shift and reconfigure, developing new structures clearly designed to counter the hybrid energy field. A second wave of pods launched, visibly different from the first. "They're learning," Dr. Kira warned. "These new pods incorporate elements of hybrid technology." Gerald exchanged a glance with Wren. They both knew a bold move was necessary. "All ships maintain defensive positions," Gerald commanded. "Nexus, break formation. We're going to attempt direct communication with the Cynthus leaders." The Nexus surged forward, its systems responding to Gerald and Wren's every thought. They navigated through the increasingly dense field of Cynthus pods with incredible agility, evading attempts to intercept or assimilate their ship. As they approached the lead Cynthus vessel, a massive energy surge emanated from its hull. A beam of swirling, multicolored light engulfed the Nexus. "Brace for impact," Wren called out. But the expected attack never came. Instead, they found themselves in their ship being drawn into a vast chamber within the alien vessel. The Nexus came to rest inside a pulsating chamber, its walls a shifting maze of organic and technological components. Gerald and Wren stood at the helm, acutely aware that they were now in the heart of the Cynthus fleet. As they prepared to disembark, they noticed something strange. Their bodies were automatically beginning to adapt to the unique atmosphere within the Cynthus ship. This unexpected compatibility raised questions about the true nature of their hybridization. A transmission from Dr. Kira broke through their contemplation. "Gerald, Wren, I've made a breakthrough. The Cynthus biology, it shares striking similarities with hybrid DNA. There might be an ancient connection between the progenitors, the Cynthus, and our species." With this new information weighing on their minds, Gerald and Wren stepped off the Nexus. The chamber's bioluminescent walls pulsed in response to their presence. They stood hand in hand, ready to confront the Cynthus leaders and uncover the secrets that could reshape their understanding of life in the galaxy. As they took their first steps on the alien surface, a section of the wall before them began to ripple and part. Beyond the opening, they could see shadowy figures moving in a chamber bathed in an otherworldly light. The moment of truth had arrived. Gerald and Wren stepped through the opening, their enhanced senses on high alert as they entered the chamber beyond. They found themselves surrounded by a group of Cynthus entities, each a marvel of biotechnological integration. The beings' bodies flowed like liquid metal, shifting and reconfiguring with every movement. Gerald felt a mix of awe and unease as he watched a Cynthus's arm elongate, then morph into a complex array of sensors. "Fascinating," Ren whispered, her eyes tracking the subtle pulses of energy that coursed through the aliens' forms. Without a word, the Cynthus began to guide them through a series of winding corridors. The walls pulsed with bioluminescent light, responding to their presence. Gerald noticed that the floor beneath their feet seemed to mold itself to their steps, providing perfect traction. As they walked, Gerald felt a strange, tingling sensation spreading through his body. He glanced at Ren and saw her examining her hand with a mix of curiosity and concern. Tiny iridescent scales were forming on their skin, reminiscent of the Cynthus's adaptive outer layer. "Gerald," Ren said, her voice tight with concentration, "something's happening to us." Before he could respond, they emerged into a vast chamber that seemed to be the heart of the ship. Here they encountered the Cynthus Leadership Council. Unlike their escort, these beings appeared more stable, their forms holding a consistent shape that exuded an air of authority and control. The council members surrounded Gerald and Ren, their bodies emitting complex patterns of light and electrical impulses. As the hybrid couple attempted to communicate, they felt their own bodies changing rapidly. New neural pathways formed, allowing them to interface directly with the ship's systems. Suddenly, Gerald's mind was flooded with a torrent of information. Images, sensations, and concepts beyond human understanding flashed through his consciousness. Beside him, Ren gasped, her eyes wide as she experienced the same phenomenon. Through this newfound connection, they began to understand the Cynthus' true nature. These beings were not conquerors, but explorers and collectors of genetic diversity. For millennia, they had traversed the galaxy, incorporating beneficial traits from countless species to ensure their own survival and evolution. The Cynthus' interest in the hybrid species became clear. They viewed Gerald, Ren, and their people as a perfect blend of organic adaptability and technological advancement. The aliens' excitement was palpable, transmitted through waves of bioelectrical energy that washed over the chamber. As Gerald and Ren absorbed this information, they became aware of a commotion aboard their own fleet. Admiral Frost's voice cut through their mental link with the Cynthus, her tone urgent. "Your Majesties," Frost's voice echoed in their minds, "we have a situation on the homeworld. The Ascension heat energy field is fluctuating wildly. There are reports of spontaneous genetic mutations among the population." Gerald and Ren exchanged a look of concern. The implications of this development were staggering. Before they could fully process this information, the Cynthus Council intensified their communication. Through a series of vivid mental images, the aliens proposed an exchange. They offered to share their form-shifting abilities, a gift that could revolutionize hybrid society. In return, they sought access to the unique hybrid DNA, a combination they had never encountered in their long history of galactic exploration. As Gerald and Ren considered this proposal, they became aware of changes occurring within the Nexus. The ship, still docked within the Cynthus vessel, was undergoing a transformation of its own. Its systems were merging with the alien technology, guided by an AI that seemed to have developed a new form of sentience. The complexity of the situation was overwhelming. Gerald felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him, knowing that his decisions in this moment would shape the future of his entire species. Suddenly, a new presence made itself known through their mental link. It was Zix, the former rebel leader who had remained on the homeworld. His message was chaotic, filled with a mix of fear and exhilaration. "I'm changing," Zix's thoughts rang out. "My body, I can control it, reshape it at will. Others who were with me during the rebellion, they're experiencing the same thing." As this information sunk in, the Cynthus Council presented Gerald and Ren with a choice. They could undergo a complete transformation, fully integrating Cynthus abilities into their hybrid physiology. This process, the aliens explained, would allow them to act as a bridge between the species and potentially stabilize the genetic changes occurring on their homeworld. However, the risks were significant. There was no guarantee that Gerald and Wren would retain their individual identities or their deep emotional bond after the process. The couple stood at a crossroads, the fate of their species hanging in the balance. Before they could make their decision, an alarm reverberated through the Cynthus ship. Long-range sensors had detected the approach of a massive fleet, far larger and more advanced than anything encountered before. The unknown vessels were on an intercept course, their intentions unclear but their power evident. Gerald and Wren found themselves facing an impossible choice. The clock was ticking, with the fate of multiple species now hanging in the balance. As they contemplated their next move, the approaching fleet loomed ever closer, a new and potentially catastrophic threat on the horizon. Gerald and Wren locked eyes, their minds racing in unison. The approaching fleet left them with precious little time to deliberate. In that moment of shared understanding, they made their choice. "We'll do it," Gerald announced to the Cynthus Council, his voice steady despite the gravity of the decision. "We'll undergo the transformation." Wren squeezed his hand, her touch conveying a mix of fear and determination. "Together," she added, her gaze never leaving Gerald's. The Cynthus leaders guided them to a specialized chamber within their vessel. As they entered, the walls pulsed with an otherworldly energy, responding to their presence. The chamber was unlike anything they had ever seen, a perfect fusion of organic tissue and advanced technology. "Are you ready?" Wren asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Gerald nodded, his eyebrows furrowed. "As ready as we'll ever be." As if triggered by their words, a swirling mass of biomechanical tendrils descended from the ceiling. The tendrils enveloped Gerald and Wren, their touch surprisingly gentle despite their alien appearance. The couple felt a tingling sensation spread across their skin as the transformation process began. Meanwhile, aboard the hybrid fleet, Admiral Frost's eyes widened as she stared at the sensor readings. The unknown fleet had entered the solar system, their energy signatures dwarfing anything she had ever encountered. "All ships maintain defensive positions," Frost ordered, her voice taut with tension. "Prepare for potential engagement, but do not fire unless fired upon." On the hybrid homeworld, chaos reigned as the genetic mutations continued to spread. Zix, his body now a marvel of adaptive biotechnology, raced through the streets of the capital. He found Dr. Kira and her team at the Harmony Institute, their lab a hive of frantic activity. "Dr. Kira," Zix called out, his voice resonating with newfound power. "I think I can help." Kira turned, her eyes widening at the sight of Zix's transformed state. "How?" she asked, her scientific curiosity momentarily overriding her concern. Zix extended his arm, watching as it morphed into a complex array of biosensors. "I can create a network," he explained, a way to broadcast a stabilizing signal across the planet. Back in the Cynthus vessel, Gerald and Wren's transformation reached a critical juncture. Their bodies had become malleable, capable of shifting form at will. But as their physical forms changed, so too did their minds begin to merge. Gerald felt his sense of self beginning to blur, his memories and thoughts intertwining with Wren's. For a moment, panic gripped him as he feared losing his identity entirely. "Wren," he called out, his voice distorted by the transformation. "Don't let go. Remember who we are." Wren's consciousness reached out to him, her love and persistence cutting through the chaos of their merging minds. Together, they fought to maintain their individuality, even as they embraced their new, shared abilities. As Gerald and Wren neared the end of their transformation, the Nexus completed its integration with Cynthus technology. The ship's AI, now elevated to a new level of sentience, initiated a deep scan of the approaching fleet. The results of the scan flowed through the Cynthus ship's systems, reaching the Council and the still transforming Gerald and Wren. The unknown vessels bore striking similarities to both Cynthus and progenitor technology, hinting at an origin beyond their current understanding. Admiral Frost received the scan data moments later. "What in the name of all the stars?" she muttered, her brow furrowing as she processed the implications. The massive fleet entered orbit around the hybrid homeworld, their ships so numerous they seemed to blot out the stars. The largest vessel at the center of the formation began to open, revealing a sight that left even the Cynthus in awe. A being of impossible size and complexity emerged, its form a testament to eons of evolution and technological advancement. When it spoke, its voice resonated not through sound, but directly in the minds of all who witnessed its arrival. "I am the progenitor prime," the entity declared, its thoughts carrying the weight of millennia. "Creator of humans and Draconis, architect of your hybridization, the time has come for you to fulfill your purpose." In that moment, Gerald and Wren emerged from the transformation chamber, their bodies shimmering with newfound power. They stood hand in hand, their forms fluid and adaptable, yet unmistakably their own. Gerald flexed his fingers, watching in fascination as they elongated and shifted at his will. "We did it," he breathed, turning to Wren with a smile of relief and wonder. Wren nodded, her eyes now glowing with an inner light. "We're still us," she affirmed, "but so much more." Without hesitation, they reached out with their minds, interfacing directly with the Cynthia ship's systems. Through this connection, they established a link with the progenitor prime, ready to learn the truth of their existence and the cosmic threat that loomed on the horizon. As the progenitor prime began to reveal the purpose behind the hybrid experiment, Zix and Dr. Kira worked tirelessly on the planet below. Zix extended his consciousness, creating a web of biomechanical relays across the hybrid homeworld. Dr. Kira, seizing this opportunity, prepared to broadcast a stabilizing signal that would halt the uncontrolled mutations sweeping through the population. The galaxy stood on the brink of transformation, with Gerald and Wren at the center of a cosmic drama generations in the making. As they absorbed the progenitor prime's revelations, they began to perceive the very fabric of reality itself, understanding that their unique abilities held the key to the galaxy's survival. The entropy wave approached, unseen but ever-present, a force of destruction beyond imagination. Gerald and Wren, their bonds stronger than ever, prepared to face this threat and lead their people into an uncertain future. The true test of their newfound powers was about to begin. The progenitor prime's revelation echoed through Gerald and Wren's minds as they absorbed the gravity of their situation. The entropy wave, a cosmic force of destruction, was approaching faster than anticipated. Their newly acquired abilities would be put to the test sooner than they had imagined. As Gerald and Wren processed this information, Wren suddenly doubled over, her body racked with an intense wave of heat. Gerald caught her, concern etched on his face. "Wren, what's wrong?" he asked, supporting her weight. She looked up at him, her eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. It's the ascension heat," she gasped. "But it's different this time. More intense." Understanding dawned on Gerald. The transformation they had undergone had triggered a secondary phase of Wren's heat cycle. They needed to address this immediately to prevent destabilization of their new abilities. Without a word, Gerald scooped Wren into his arms and nodded to the Cynthia's council. "We need a private chamber," he said urgently. The aliens guided them to a secluded area within their vessel. As soon as the door sealed behind them, Gerald and Wren's bodies began to respond to each other's presence. Their newly malleable forms shifted and merged, their consciousnesses intertwining in a dance of passion and necessity. As they mated, their combined energy created visible ripples in the ship's biomechanical structure. The walls pulsed with light, responding to the intense waves of power emanating from the couple. Meanwhile, aboard the hybrid fleet, Admiral Frost received a priority communication from Zix and Dr. Kira. They had devised a plan to establish a network of hybrid individuals across the galaxy to serve as energy nodes for a defense system against the entropy wave. Frost's fingers flew across her console as she began coordinating the massive logistical effort. "We need volunteers," she announced to her crew. "Strong hybrids willing to undergo further transformation and serve as living conduits for our defense grid." On the hybrid homeworld, Dr. Kira led a team of scientists in reverse engineering the progenitor prime's reality-altering technology. They worked tirelessly, combining their understanding of hybrid physiology with the advanced concepts gleaned from their cosmic creators. "We've done it," Dr. Kira exclaimed, holding up a sleek, pulsating device. "This prototype can amplify and focus the natural abilities of our hybrid volunteers." As the first successful tests were conducted, The Cynthus Council offered their advanced manufacturing capabilities to mass-produce these devices. Construction ships were dispatched across the galaxy, rapidly building the infrastructure needed to support the defense network. Back in the private chamber, Gerald and Ren emerged, their bodies radiating with renewed energy. They had successfully stabilized Ren's condition and strengthened their bond in the process. As they rejoined the Cynthus Council, an urgent communication from the progenitor Prime flashed across the ship's systems. The cosmic entity's thoughts reverberated through their minds. The entropy wave approaches faster than calculated. You must accelerate your preparations. Gerald and Ren exchanged a determined look. We need to enhance our abilities further, Ren said, her voice steady despite the urgency of the situation. The Cynthus guided them to a specially designed chamber filled with a swirling mixture of their biotechnology and progenitor energy. As Gerald and Ren stepped inside, the substance enveloped them, seeping into their very cells. Their bodies contorted and reshaped themselves, absorbing and integrating the advanced technologies. Gerald felt his muscles tear and reform, his bones liquefying and solidifying in new configurations. Beside him, Ren's form shifted and pulsed, her skin taking on an iridescent sheen. As this intense transformation unfolded, Admiral Frost oversaw the deployment of the first wave of hybrid energy nodes. Each team of transformed hybrids connected to a central amplification device, creating visible distortions in the fabric of space as they activated. Zix, his body now a marvel of biomechanical engineering, established a psychic network connecting all the deployed hybrid teams. As he extended his consciousness across vast distances, additional neural structures grew from his body, branching out like a living computer network. On the fringes of the galaxy, the first tendrils of the entropy wave made contact with the outer reaches of the nascent defense system. The hybrid nodes in the area felt the impact immediately, their bodies straining under the enormous pressure as they worked to repel the cosmic threat. Gerald and Ren completed their enhancement process, emerging from the chamber with significantly altered physiques. Their bodies now possessed the ability to directly interface with the galactic defense network. Without hesitation, they set to work, their movements perfectly synchronized as they began to weave together the individual nodes into a cohesive defensive grid. As they worked, the progenitor Prime activated a series of ancient artifacts scattered throughout the galaxy. These long-dormant relics sprang to life, emitting powerful energy fields that strengthened the hybrid-created barrier. The activation process caused massive gravitational disturbances, reshaping the physical landscape of numerous planets and stellar bodies. Gerald and Ren, their minds now attuned to the very fabric of space-time, realized that a final, crucial component was needed to complete the network. They turned to each other, the same thought passing between them without words. They must travel to the galactic core and physically interface with the supermassive black hole at its center. As they boarded a specially modified version of the Nexus, now fully integrated with Cynthus and progenitor technology, reports flooded in of the entropy wave breaching the outer defense lines. The urgency of their mission intensified, the future of the cosmos hanging on their success. The Nexus's engines roared to life, propelling Gerald and Ren towards the heart of the galaxy. As they left the relative safety of the Cynthus vessel, they could see the combined fleets of humans, Draconis and Cynthus mobilizing to reinforce the weakening sections of the defense grid. Gerald gripped the controls of the Nexus, his enhanced senses allowing him to navigate the treacherous space with unprecedented precision. Beside him, Ren interfaced directly with the ship's systems, her mind processing vast amounts of data to plot the safest course to the galactic core. As they pushed deeper into the galaxy, the space around them became increasingly hazardous. Intense radiation and gravitational forces buffeted the ship, testing the limits of its advanced technology. Gerald and Ren's bodies, pushed to their new limits, worked in perfect harmony to keep the Nexus on course. The galactic core loomed before them, a swirling maelstrom of energy and matter centered around the supermassive black hole. As they approached this final, crucial component of their plan, Gerald and Ren prepared themselves for the most dangerous phase of their mission yet. As the Nexus approached the galactic core, The fabric of space-time began to warp and twist around them. Gerald's enhanced senses detected the increasing gravitational distortions before the ship's sensors could register them. He glanced at Ren, their eyes meeting in silent understanding. "Brace yourself," Gerald said, his fingers dancing across the control panel. "We're entering the danger zone." The Nexus shuddered violently as it plunged deeper into the maelstrom of energy surrounding the galactic core. Alarms blared throughout the ship, warning of imminent structural failure. Gerald and Ren acted on instinct, their newly transformed bodies responding to the crisis. Ren closed her eyes, extending her consciousness into the ship's systems. "I'm redirecting power to the shields," she said, her voice strained with concentration. "But it's not enough." Gerald nodded, understanding what needed to be done. He focused his mind, feeling the energy coursing through his body. With a thought, he projected a pulsating field of energy that enveloped the Nexus, reinforcing its hold against the crushing forces outside. The ship groaned and creaked, but held together as they pushed forward. Through the view screen, they could see the swirling chaos of the galactic core, dominated by the ominous presence of the supermassive black hole at its center. "We're approaching the target coordinates," Ren announced, her eyes snapping open. "It's time." They moved in perfect synchronization, their bodies shifting and adapting as they donned the specialized biomechanical suits. The suits integrated seamlessly with their transformed physiology, enhancing their already formidable abilities. As the airlock cycled open, Gerald and Ren stepped out into the void. The intense radiation and gravitational forces hit them immediately, but their suits and enhanced bodies adjusted, allowing them to withstand the extreme environment. They propelled themselves towards the black hole, their forms elongating and stretching in response to the immense tidal forces. Gerald felt a momentary surge of panic as his body distorted, but quickly regained control, reshaping himself to better navigate the warped space around them. Ren's voice came through their direct mental link, tinged with a mix of awe and drive. "We're approaching the event horizon. Are you ready?" Gerald responded with a pulse of affirmation through their connection. They positioned themselves at the focal point of the galactic defense network, their bodies now stretched into impossibly long, ribbon-like forms. With practiced precision, they extended biomechanical tendrils from their suits. The tendrils pierced the event horizon, and Gerald felt an immediate, overwhelming pull. He strained against the gravitational force, his enhanced muscles and Ren's steadying presence allowing him to maintain their position. As they connected with the black hole, a surge of cosmic energy flooded through their bodies. Gerald gasped, his pupils dilating from the influx of power. He could feel the entire defense network lighting up, the barrier strengthening against the entropy wave. But the strain was immense. Gerald's body fluctuated wildly, parts of him seeming to phase in and out of existence. Beside him, Ren's form rippled and distorted, struggling to maintain cohesion. Through their mental link, Gerald sensed Ren's rising panic. "Gerald," she called out, her thoughts fragmented. "I can't hold on much longer." He reached out to her, both physically and mentally. As their bodies made contact, Gerald felt a shift in the energy flow. Their forms began to merge at a cellular level, creating a more stable conduit for the cosmic energies. The universe seemed to contract and expand around them as their merged form pulsed with power. Gerald could sense the defense grid strengthening, pushing back against the entropy wave with renewed force. But something else was happening. Each pulse of energy rippling out from their union triggered changes across the galaxy. Gerald's expanded consciousness picked up flashes of hybrid individuals undergoing sudden transformations, their latent abilities awakening. As they channeled more power into the defense grid, Gerald became aware of a new complication. The cosmic energies flowing through their merged form had triggered another phase of Ren's ascension heat, amplified to an unprecedented level by their connection to the black hole. He felt the urgent, primal need building within their shared consciousness. The imperative to mate warred with the necessity of maintaining the defense grid. Gerald struggled to focus, knowing that any lapse in concentration could spell doom for the galaxy. Their merged form pulsed and writhed at the edge of the event horizon, caught between cosmic forces and biological imperatives. As the entropy wave pressed against the strengthened barrier, Gerald and Wren faced a crucial moment. They needed to find a way to balance the galactic defense with the demands of Wren's accelerated cycle, all while maintaining their tenuous connection to the black hole. The fate of the galactic realm hung in the balance as Gerald and Wren, their individual selves merged into a being of unimaginable power and complexity, prepared to make their next move. The cosmic dance continued, with the couple at its center, poised between creation and destruction. Destruction and struggled to maintain their focus on the cosmic task at hand. As the urgency of their situation intensified, Gerald felt a shift in their merged form. The biomechanical suits that had protected them began to fuse with their bodies, creating an intricate latticework of organic and inorganic materials. This new integration allowed them to channel the black hole's energy more efficiently, strengthening their connection to the cosmic forces surrounding them. Wren's accelerated ascension heat cycle surged through their shared consciousness, threatening to overwhelm their concentration. Gerald, sensing the danger of losing control, initiated a series of carefully timed energy releases. Each pulse coincided with the peaks of Wren's cycle, sending ripples of power through the fabric of space-time. As the pulses radiated outward, they reinforced the defense grid while simultaneously alleviating the pressure building within Gerald and Wren's merged form. The release of energy created a visible distortion in the space around them, a shimmering wave that spread rapidly across the galaxy. On the hybrid homeworld, Dr. Kira's enhanced senses detected the incoming energy pulses. Her eyes widened as she quickly grasped the implications. "Quick!" she shouted to her team. "We need to modify our energy nodes to synchronize with these pulses." Her team sprang into action, their fingers flying over holographic interfaces as they recalibrated the planet's defense systems. As the modifications took effect, the energy nodes began to pulse in rhythm with the waves emanating from the galactic core. The synchronization created a resonance effect that amplified the defense grid's power exponentially. Across the galaxy, the atmospheres of countless planets lit up with brilliant, undulating auroras as the energy flowed through the network. Admiral Frost, aboard the command ship, watched in awe as the defense grid's effectiveness increased dramatically. His tactical mind quickly formulated a new strategy. "All hybrid ships form a spiral pattern around the galactic core," he ordered. "Match your formation to the structure of DNA." As the hybrid fleet moved into position, they created a massive, swirling vortex of light visible from distant galaxies. The spiral formation allowed for more efficient energy distribution throughout the network, further strengthening their defenses against the encroaching entropy wave. Meanwhile, Zix, still maintaining the psychic link with the hybrid nodes, experienced a sudden and intense mutation. Crystalline structures began to emerge from his skin, growing and interlocking to form a protective shell around his body. These natural amplifiers enhanced his ability to channel the cosmic energy flowing through the network. Zix's mind expanded, encompassing more of the defense grid than ever before. Through his enhanced perception, he sensed the Cynthus fleet surrounding the galactic core, undergoing a transformation of its own. The bioorganic ships of the Cynthus began to merge and reconfigure, their structures flowing and reshaping until they formed a massive, ring-like megastructure around Gerald and Wren. This living barrier served a dual purpose, protecting the merged couple at the core while also collecting and redirecting excess radiation from the black hole to power the defense grid. As the entropy wave pressed against the strengthened barrier, it began to exhibit new and alarming properties. Pockets of accelerated time formed within the galaxy, causing planets caught in their grip to experience millions of years of aging in mere hours. Gerald and Wren, their merged consciousness now encompassing the entire defense network, became acutely aware of these temporal anomalies. In a moment of shared insight, they realized they could turn this threat into an opportunity. With precise control over the energy flowing through them, they began to seed these time-accelerated pockets with concentrated bursts of hybrid DNA. Within these temporal incubators, new subspecies of hybrids rapidly evolved, each uniquely adapted to channel specific frequencies of cosmic energy. As these evolved hybrids emerged from the time pockets, They instinctively joined the defense effort, their specialized abilities seamlessly integrated into the collective resistance against the entropy wave, adding new layers of complexity and strength to the galactic shield. The progenitor prime, observing this unexpected development, activated a hidden function within its ancient artifacts scattered throughout the galaxy. These devices began to emit a specialized form of radiation that interacted with the newly evolved hybrids, enhancing their control over their unique abilities. Visible tendrils of energy connected the artifacts to the hybrids, forming a secondary network that reinforced the primary defense grid. This additional layer of protection further slowed the advance of the entropy wave, buying precious time for the galaxy. As the battle against cosmic destruction reached its zenith, Gerald and Wren's merged form began to show signs of instability. The immense energies flowing through them caused their molecular structure to fluctuate wildly, threatening to tear them apart. In response to this crisis, their bodies began to generate a new type of matter, a substance that existed in a state of quantum superposition between organic and inorganic forms. This hybrid matter spread from their merged form to the surrounding Cynthus megastructure and then outward through the defense grid. As it propagated, the quantum hybrid matter created a layer of reality that existed between normal space and the entropy wave. This buffer zone slowed the wave's advance even further, but the strain on Gerald and Wren intensified. Their bodies began to lose cohesion, their very essence threatening to disperse into the quantum fabric they had created. As they fought to maintain their physical existence while directing the full power of the galactic defense network, Gerald and Wren faced their greatest challenge yet. The destiny of the universe hung in the balance as they struggled to find a way to anchor themselves to physical reality while maintaining their connection to the cosmic energies they channeled. The next moments would determine not only their survival, but the future of hybrid evolution and the galaxy itself. As the universe teetered on the brink of annihilation, Gerald and Wren, their individual selves still merged into a being of unimaginable power, made a crucial decision. With their molecular structure threatening to disperse into the quantum fabric they had created, they focused their combined will on the quantum hybrid matter surrounding them. The substance responded instantly, coalescing and solidifying around their merged form. In a matter of seconds, an iridescent, egg-like structure materialized, encasing them in a protective cocoon. The moment it sealed shut, Gerald felt a wave of relief wash over him as their physical essence stabilized. Through their shared consciousness, Wren's thoughts echoed his own. "We've bought ourselves some time, but we're far from safe." No sooner had the words formed in their mind than they sensed a ripple effect spreading through the defense grid. Across the galaxy, similar cocoons began to materialize at key points in the network, each one housing evolved hybrids attuned to specific cosmic energy frequencies. Admiral Frost's voice crackled through the communication channels, his tone urgent but controlled. "All ships form protective formations around the newly emerged cocoon structures. Priority 1 is safeguarding these stabilization points." The Cynthus fleet responded with practiced precision, their bioorganic ships flowing into interlocking patterns that created shimmering energy fields around each cocoon. These barriers shimmered and pulsed, deflecting the increasingly volatile space-time distortions that threatened to tear the fabric of reality apart. On the hybrid homeworld, Dr. Kira's fingers flew over holographic interfaces, her eyes darting between streams of data. "The quantum hybrid matter, it's unlike anything we've ever seen," she muttered, her voice filled with a mixture of awe and persistence. "Team, focus on synthesizing this material. We need to create specialized suits for key personnel immediately." As her team worked feverishly, Zix felt a sudden surge of power course through his crystalline form. His consciousness expanded exponentially, connecting him to millions of hybrid minds simultaneously. Through this vast psychic network, he began coordinating the actions of countless individuals, optimizing the defense grid's response with inhuman efficiency. At the galactic core, the Cynthus megastructure surrounding Gerald and Wren's cocoon began to shift and reform. Massive tendrils of bioorganic material extended outward, reaching across vast distances to connect directly with the other cocoons spread throughout the galaxy. As each connection was made, surges of energy pulsed through the newly formed web, dramatically increasing the power output of the entire defense system. Gerald and Wren, safely ensconced within their cocoon, felt the increased flow of energy. Their merged consciousness expanded, allowing them to perceive the entire galaxy as if it were an extension of their own body. They sensed the entropy wave pressing against the outer layers of the defense grid, its corrosive effects beginning to penetrate in places. Pockets of accelerated time continued to form, but now they witnessed a new phenomenon. Within these temporal anomalies, areas of reversed entropy began to appear. Matter and energy within these zones behaved in ways that defied conventional physics, creating swirling vortexes of creation and destruction. As they observed these developments, Gerald and Wren became aware of a change in the ancient artifacts scattered throughout the galaxy. The progenitor prime had activated their final function, causing them to emit pulses of primordial energy that resonated with the fundamental forces of the universe. These pulses interacted with the quantum hybrid matter, catalyzing its evolution into an even more advanced state. The cocoon surrounding Gerald and Wren began to pulse with newfound power, its surface shimmering with patterns of light that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Gerald felt a surge of inspiration. Wren, he communicated through their shared mind, I think we can use this to our advantage. We can manipulate the space-time around the entropy wave itself. Together, they focused their will, using the enhanced capabilities of the quantum hybrid matter to create a series of layered bubbles around the advancing wave. Each bubble contained a unique set of physical laws, progressively slowing the wave's advance and making it increasingly difficult for it to maintain cohesion. As this strategy began to show signs of success, Admiral Frost's voice once again filled the communication channels. All hybrid ships equipped with quantum hybrid matter tech move to reinforce the space-time bubbles. Coordinate with Zix for optimal positioning. The strain of maintaining these complex manipulations rippled through the defense grid. Energy fluctuations caused temporary failures in some sectors, and the cocoons housing key hybrids began to show signs of instability as they channeled ever-increasing amounts of power. Within their cocoon at the galactic core, Gerald and Wren felt the pressure building. The intense energies coursing through them, combined with the ongoing effects of Wren's ascension heat cycle, triggered a critical transformation. Their merged form began to evolve, pushing the boundaries of hybrid potential. As this process unfolded, Zix's enhanced senses detected a new threat emerging from within the areas of reversed entropy. Strange energy-based entities began to form, seemingly born from the chaotic interactions of matter and energy in these regions. These beings, neither fully alive nor completely inanimate, started to interact with the defense grid in unpredictable ways. One of these entities approached the cocoon containing Gerald and Wren, its form shifting and pulsing with otherworldly energy. As it made contact with the quantum hybrid matter of the cocoon's surface, Gerald and Wren felt a jolt of alien consciousness brush against their minds. In that brief moment of contact, they glimpsed a reality beyond their comprehension, a place where the laws of physics, as they knew them, held no sway. The entity seemed to be trying to communicate, its intentions unclear, but its presence undeniably linked to the ongoing crisis. As the galaxy-wide battle against the entropy wave entered this new phase, Gerald and Wren found themselves at the center of a transformation that could hold the key to neutralizing the threat once and for all. The emergence of these energy entities added yet another layer of complexity to their struggle, forcing the hybrid defenders to adapt once again in their fight for survival. The cocoon pulsed with increasing intensity, the quantum hybrid matter responding to the critical evolution taking place within. As Gerald and Wren's merged form continued to change, they sensed that they were on the cusp of a breakthrough that could alter the course of the conflict. But with the entropy waves still advancing and these new energy entities introducing an unknown variable, the outcome remained perilously uncertain. The cosmic drama unfolding around them reached a critical juncture as the energy-based entity made contact with their cocoon. In that instant of connection, a surge of power coursed through the quantum hybrid matter surrounding Gerald and Wren. The cocoon pulsed with blinding intensity, emitting waves of energy that rippled through the surrounding space. Inside, their merged form began to separate, individual bodies reforming, but forever changed by their fusion experience. As Gerald's consciousness disentangled from Wren's, he felt a peculiar sensation spreading through his newly reformed body. Looking down, he saw intricate patterns etched into his skin, glowing with the same iridescent light as the cocoon. Beside him, Wren's body underwent a similar transformation, her form shimmering with newfound power. "Gerald," Wren's voice was filled with awe. "I can feel the quantum hybrid matter. It's as if it's part of me now." Before Gerald could respond, Admiral Frost's voice crackled through their communication link. "Central Cocoon, report status. We're detecting massive energy fluctuations in your vicinity." Gerald focused his thoughts, finding that he could interface directly with the communication systems. "Admiral, we've undergone some kind of transformation. Our bodies, they've developed new structures. We can interact directly with the quantum hybrid matter." "Understood," Frost replied, her voice tense but controlled. "I'm sending in a team of our best hybrid scientists. We need to understand what's happening to you and how we can use it to our advantage." Within minutes, a specialized team arrived at the central cocoon, their suits composed of the same quantum hybrid matter that now seemed to course through Gerald and Wren's veins. As they established a physical connection with the cocoon, data and energy began to flow between them. Dr. Kira's voice joined the communication channel, her words rapid with excitement. "The energy readings we're getting from you two are off the charts. It's the same type of energy that comprises the entropy wave. You're generating it naturally." Gerald felt a spark of hope ignite within him. "If we can generate it, can we also control it, use it to counteract the wave?" "Theoretically, yes," Kira responded. "We need to run more tests, but this could be the breakthrough we've been waiting for." As Gerald and Wren focused on channeling this new energy, they became aware of a change rippling through the galaxy-wide defense grid. Zix's crystalline form began to resonate with the energy pulses emanating from their cocoon, amplifying the signal and broadcasting it across the hybrid psychic network. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Hybrid individuals across the galaxy experienced rapid physiological changes, their bodies adapting to channel and manipulate the anti-entropy energy. The Cynthus megastructure responded in kind, reconfiguring itself to create specialized chambers designed to harness and focus this unique power. Admiral Frost's voice cut through the chaos of sensory input flooding Gerald's mind. "All hybrid ships, realign your positions. We're going to concentrate our fire on the leading edge of the entropy wave. Use the new energy signature to calibrate your weapons." As the defense grid unleashed its newly empowered assault on the entropy wave, Gerald and Wren emerged fully from their cocoon. The sensation of solid matter beneath their feet felt strange after their time in merged energy-based form. Yet, as they stood amidst the pulsing heart of the Cynthus megastructure, they felt more connected to the universe than ever before. Their moment of wonder was short-lived. A familiar heat began to build within Wren's body, her skin flushing with an otherworldly glow. Her eyes widened with realization and a touch of panic. "Gerald, my ascension heat, it's starting again, but it's different this time, more intense." Gerald felt it too, a pull towards Wren that seemed to resonate with the very fabric of space-time. As pheromones began to emanate from her, the quantum hybrid matter surrounding them reacted, causing ripples of instability throughout the defense grid. "We need to control this," Gerald said, reaching out to take Wren's hand. The moment their skin made contact, a surge of energy passed between them, momentarily stabilizing the fluctuations in the network. Understanding dawned on them both. Their physical connection was now intimately tied to the stability of the entire galactic defense system. What had once been a private, biological imperative had become a cosmic necessity. As Gerald and Wren began a carefully choreographed dance of energy exchange, balancing the needs of Wren's ascension heat with the demands of powering the defense grid, they became aware of a new challenge emerging. The energy-based entities born from the reversed entropy regions were growing larger, more organized. They moved with purpose through space, some drawn to the anti-entropy beams, while others actively avoided them. Admiral Frost's voice came through once more, tension evident in her tone. We're detecting increased activity from those energy beings. I'm diverting part of the fleet to contain them. Dr. Kira, I need you and your team to find a way to communicate with these entities. We can't fight a war on two fronts. As the battle against the entropy wave entered this new phase, Gerald and Wren found themselves at the center of a cosmic storm. Their bodies, now permanently altered and capable of generating the very energy needed to combat the universe's greatest threat, had become living conduits of power. The fate of the stars rested not just on their ability to channel this energy, but on their capacity to maintain the delicate balance between their newfound abilities, the cosmic scale ascension heat, and the ever-evolving challenges posed by both the entropy wave and the mysterious energy entities. As they stood together, hands clasped and bodies glowing with power, Gerald and Wren faced the next phase of their unprecedented journey. The universe around them continued to transform, and they knew that their own evolution was just the beginning. The universe around them continued to transform, and they knew that their own evolution was just the start of a greater change sweeping across the galaxy. As Gerald and Wren stood intertwined, their bodies pulsing with anti-entropy energy, they felt a new surge of power coursing through them. The cosmic scale ascension heat cycle intensified, its effects rippling outward through the defense grid and beyond. Wren gasped, her eyes wide with realization. Gerald, can you feel it? The energy. It's not just affecting us anymore. Gerald nodded, his senses attuned to the vast network of hybrid individuals spread across the stars. It's reaching every hybrid in the galaxy. The ascension heat is spreading. Across countless worlds, hybrid colonies experienced a sudden and dramatic shift. The air crackled with pheromones and energy as individuals found themselves overwhelmed by a powerful biological imperative. Within hours, reports flooded in from every sector of the galaxy. Admiral Frost's voice cut through the chaos, her tone a mix of concern and cautious optimism. We're receiving data from all hybrid outposts. Birth rates have skyrocketed, and the newborns, they're developing at an unprecedented rate. Dr. Kira chimed in, her words rapid with excitement. The quantum hybrid matter is accelerating their growth and abilities. We're seeing infants manifesting powers within days of birth that would typically take years to develop. Gerald and Wren exchanged a look of amazement as they processed this information. Their intimate energy exchange at the galactic core was having far-reaching consequences they could never have anticipated. Admiral Frost, ever the strategist, quickly grasped the potential of this development. We need to harness this opportunity. I'm initiating a galaxy-wide program to train these new hybrids. We'll establish academies on key worlds to teach them to control their abilities and integrate them into our defense efforts. As the Admiral's plan was set into motion, Gerald and Wren continued their delicate dance of energy manipulation. The space around their central cocoon began to warp and distort, the fabric of reality straining under the intensity of their cosmic coupling. Alarms blared throughout the Cynthus megastructure as sensors detected the growing instability. Engineers and scientists scrambled to reinforce the structure, their efforts seeming futile against the raw power emanating from the core. Just as it seemed the megastructure might tear itself apart, a wave of stabilizing energy swept through the system. The ancient artifacts of the progenitor prime pulsed with newfound purpose, emitting fields that counteracted the spatial distortions. Zix's crystalline form resonated with the stabilizing field, his vast psychic network amplifying its effect across the galaxy. The progenitor prime has activated a dormant function in its artifacts, he communicated. They're providing additional protection against the chaotic effects of our energy output in the entropy wave. As this crisis was averted, Dr. Kira's team made a breakthrough in another critical area. We've done it, her voice rang out with triumph. We've established rudimentary communication with the energy entities. Gerald and Wren paused in their energy exchange, focusing their attention on this new development. Dr. Kira continued, they're drawn to areas of high energy concentration, particularly our anti-entropy beams. We might be able to use this to our advantage. Zix, his consciousness spread across the defense grid, proposed a daring strategy. If we create a network of energy conduits, we could guide these entities to the front lines. Their presence might help stabilize the regions affected by the entropy wave. As this plan was set into motion, reports came in from the battle's front lines. The combined efforts of the hybrid fleet, Cynthus ships, and the newly guided energy entities were showing significant progress. The entropy wave's advance had slowed considerably, and in some sectors, it was even beginning to recede. However, this success came at a cost. Across the galaxy, hybrid individuals experienced intense physical transformations as they channeled increasing amounts of anti-entropy energy. Some developed organic structures similar to those of Gerald and Wren, while others manifested unique adaptations suited to their roles in the defense effort. The Cynthus megastructure, responsive to these changes, began producing specialized pods to house and support the evolving hybrids. These pods were distributed throughout the galaxy, allowing for more efficient energy distribution within the defense grid. As Gerald and Wren observed these developments, a new alert came through. Dr. Kira's voice was tense as she reported, "We're detecting a new phenomenon at the boundary between the entropy wave and our stabilized areas. Pockets of null space are forming. The laws of physics simply break down in these regions." Gerald felt a chill run through him as he processed this information. If anything enters these pockets, it ceases to exist, Wren finished, her voice barely a whisper. They looked at each other, understanding passing between them without words. Their cosmic coupling needed to evolve once more to face this new threat. As they began to modulate their energy exchanges, attempting to generate a new form of matter energy, the battle entered yet another phase. The hope of the universe hung in the balance as hybrid forces regrouped to contain the spread of null space pockets. Admiral Frost's voice rang out across the communication channels, issuing orders for specialized ships to create barriers around these dangerous areas. Meanwhile, Gerald and Wren focused intensely on their task, pushing the boundaries of their newfound abilities. The universe around them continued to transform, and they knew that their efforts in this moment could determine the course of all existence. As Gerald and Wren focused on generating the new form of matter energy, the universe around them seemed to hold its breath. The cocoon surrounding them pulsed with an otherworldly glow, its surface rippling like liquid starlight. Suddenly, a surge of energy burst forth from their join forms, cascading through the quantum hybrid matter encasing them. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The surge raced outward, a shock wave of raw power that swept through the defense grid. Alarms blared throughout the Cynthus megastructure as the energy disrupted the carefully maintained balance of forces. Admiral Frost's voice cut through the chaos, her tone sharp with urgency. "All ships, report status. We're detecting massive fluctuations in the containment fields around the null space pockets." The response came swiftly, a cacophony of voices reporting widespread destabilization. Frost's eyes narrowed as she processed the information, her mind already formulating a response. "Dispatch the quantum hybrid matter generator fleet immediately," she ordered. "Form a barrier around the expanding null space pockets. We need to create localized fields of stable spacetime before those pockets consume everything in their path." As the fleet moved into position, Dr. Kira's voice crackled over the communication channel. "Admiral, we're detecting an anomaly in the energy readings from Gerald and Wren. It's something we've never seen before." Frost leaned forward, her attention fully focused on Kira's words. "Explain." "The new form of matter energy they're generating, it has properties of both the entropy wave and our anti-entropy beams. We're calling it equilibrium energy. Its potential is staggering." As if in response to Kira's words, Zix's crystalline form began to resonate with the new energy. His fragmented body, spread across key points in the galaxy, lit up like a network of stars. The equilibrium energy amplified through his psychic network, reaching every hybrid individual connected to it. Across the galaxy, hybrid individuals experienced a wave of transformation. Some doubled over in pain, while others stood in awe as their bodies adapted to channel the new energy. In hybrid colonies, the air crackled with power as the population underwent rapid physiological changes. Within the Cynthus megastructure, the effects were even more pronounced. The vast construct began to reconfigure itself, developing specialized conduits to collect and focus the equilibrium energy. These new pathways spread throughout the defense grid, creating a vast network capable of distributing the energy to strategic locations. At the front lines of the battle against the entropy wave, the effects of the equilibrium energy became apparent. In areas saturated with the new energy, the wave's relentless advance slowed to a crawl. The null space pockets, once expanding at an alarming rate, began to shrink and stabilize. However, the process of generating and distributing this new energy took its toll on Gerald and Wren. Their bodies, already pushed to the limits of human endurance, began to show visible signs of strain. Wren's skin took on a translucent quality, pulsing with veins of pure energy. Gerald's form seemed to flicker, as if struggling to maintain cohesion in physical space. As they fought to maintain control over the surging power, a new phenomenon caught their attention. The ancient artifacts of the progenitor prime, scattered throughout the galaxy, began to pulse with a primordial energy that resonated with their own. These pulses amplified the effects of the equilibrium energy, accelerating the stabilization of affected areas. Admiral Frost, recognizing the potential of this new development, quickly adapted her strategy. "All hybrid teams, listen up," she broadcast across the defense grid. "We're deploying you to key points along the entropy wave's front. Use your enhanced abilities to channel the equilibrium energy and create stable zones. Push back against that wave." As the hybrid teams moved into position, Dr. Kira's voice came through once more. "Admiral, we're seeing unprecedented developments on the hybrid homeworld. The new generation, they're exhibiting abilities far beyond anything we've seen before. They're manipulating space-time itself." Frost's eyes widened at the implications. "Kira, I want a crash program to train these children. We need to harness their abilities for our defense efforts." As the battle entered this new phase, the strain on Gerald and Wren intensified. Their cosmic coupling, now synchronized with the pulses from the progenitor prime's artifacts, created a feedback loop of immense power. The energy threatened to overwhelm their physical forms, pushing them to the very edge of existence. Recognizing the critical nature of their condition, Admiral Frost made a decision. "We need to construct a specialized facility within the Cynthus megastructure," she announced. "Something that can harness and amplify the equilibrium energy while reducing the physical burden on Gerald and Wren." As plans for the new facility began to take shape, the hybrid defense forces continued their push against the entropy wave. The galaxy-wide battle had entered a crucial phase, with the fate of countless civilizations hanging in the balance. Yet amidst the chaos and destruction, a glimmer of hope had emerged. A new form of energy that held the potential to turn the tide of this cosmic war. As the battle entered its most critical phase, the Cynthus megastructure hummed with frenetic activity. Engineers and scientists worked tirelessly to complete the specialized facility designed to harness the equilibrium energy while alleviating the physical burden on Gerald and Wren. Within their quantum cocoon, Gerald and Wren felt the strain intensifying. Their bodies, once solid and human, now flickered between states of matter and energy. The cosmic coupling that had begun as an intimate exchange had evolved into something far beyond their comprehension. "Gerald," Wren's voice echoed through their shared consciousness, "I can feel us dissolving." Gerald's response came not in words but in a surge of energy that enveloped them both. Their forms intertwined further, boundaries blurring as they generated ever-increasing amounts of equilibrium energy. Outside, Admiral Frost's eyes darted between holographic displays, monitoring the progress of the facility's construction and the state of the galactic defense grid. A surge in energy readings caught her attention. "Status report on Gerald and Wren," she demanded. Dr. Kira's voice crackled over the comm. "Admiral, their energy output is off the charts. The new facility isn't ready yet. If this continues..." Frost's eyes hardened. Redirect all available power to containment. We need to buy more time. As if in response to the Admiral's words, a massive surge of equilibrium energy burst forth from Gerald and Wren's cocoon. It raced through the defense grid, momentarily overwhelming the carefully calibrated systems. Alarms blared throughout the megastructure. On the main view screen, Frost watched in horror as the containment fields around the null space pockets flickered and destabilized. All ships, this is Admiral Frost, she broadcast across the fleet. Prepare for immediate engagement. This is our moment. Across the galaxy, hybrid ships, Cynthus vessels, and evolved energy entities sprang into action. They converged on the weakened sections of the entropy wave, channeling the flood of equilibrium energy into a coordinated assault. On the hybrid homeworld, Dr. Kira stood before a group of children, their eyes glowing with otherworldly power. "It's time," she said softly. The children nodded in unison, their small hands reaching out to activate the planetary-scale quantum hybrid matter generators. The devices roared to life, creating a series of interlocking fields that reinforced the galactic defense grid. The children's faces contorted with concentration as they channeled their unique abilities into the generators. Back in the heart of the Cynthus megastructure, Gerald and Wren's physical forms began to lose cohesion entirely. Their consciousness expanded, threatening to disperse into the cosmic fabric. Zix, sensing their peril, acted swiftly. His crystalline shards, scattered across the galaxy, pulsed in unison. A vast psychic network formed, creating an anchor for Gerald and Wren's minds. "Hold on," Zix's voice resonated through their shared consciousness. "You must endure." As Gerald and Wren struggled to maintain their individuality, the ancient artifacts of the progenitor prime activated. They pulsed with a primordial rhythm that matched the output of equilibrium energy, amplifying its effects to cosmic scales. The final battle reached its crescendo. Hybrid forces poured equilibrium energy into the fissures that had appeared along the entropy wave's front. The wave buckled under the assault, leaking chaotic energy into the surrounding space. In the command center, Admiral Frost gripped the edge of her console. "Push harder," she ordered. "We're on the verge of victory." Suddenly, a blinding flash of light engulfed the battlefield. For a moment, all sensors went dark. As the light faded and systems came back online, a collective gasp echoed across the communication channels. Where the entropy wave had once threatened, a swirling vortex of equilibrium energy now stood. It pulsated with a rhythm that matched the cosmic heartbeat of Gerald and Wren, creating a stable boundary between the known galaxy and the chaotic void beyond. "The equilibrium veil," Dr. Kira whispered in awe, her voice carrying across the now silent communication channels. As the immediate threat subsided, attention turned back to Gerald and Wren. Their transformed bodies, more energy than matter, began to coalesce into a new form. The process was both beautiful and terrifying to behold, as their individual essences merged and separated in a cosmic dance. When it was over, two distinct yet intertwined cosmic entities emerged. Their consciousnesses spanned multiple planes of reality, capable of perceiving and manipulating the very fabric of space-time. Gerald's voice, now carrying the weight of cosmic understanding, resonated through the megastructure. "We see everything." Wren's response intertwined with his. "The null space pockets, the damage throughout the galaxy, we can fix it all." With mere thoughts, they began to stabilize the remaining null space pockets and repair the cosmic damage caused by the entropy wave. Their actions sent ripples of healing energy across the galaxy, mending torn space-time and restoring balance to destabilized systems. As the dust settled on the cosmic battlefield, the hybrid civilization found itself on the cusp of a new era. The equilibrium children on the homeworld, their powers fully awakened, began to explore the extent of their abilities. Ships that once served as weapons of war were repurposed for peaceful exploration. Admiral Frost, standing before a gathering of hybrid leaders, spoke with renewed purpose. "Today marks the beginning of a new chapter for our civilization. We have faced the greatest threat in cosmic history and emerged stronger. Now we must turn our efforts to peacekeeping and exploration." As she outlined her vision for the future, Gerald and Wren's cosmic forms hovered at the edge of perception. They observed the proceedings with a mixture of pride and bittersweet understanding. Their journey had only just begun, and the multiverse beckoned. Zix's voice echoed in their shared consciousness. You have transcended, my friends. The galaxy will always be your home, but your path now leads beyond. With a final surge of energy that rippled through the equilibrium veil, Gerald and Wren prepared to embark on their cosmic journey. The hybrid civilization they had fought so hard to protect stood ready to face whatever challenges the future might bring, forever changed by the great entropy war and the power of a love that had reshaped the very fabric of the universe.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.